over here and hand sanitizer. We tried to spread the council out to respect the social distancing. So hopefully it makes the meeting a little more difficult, but we'll get through it, right? So thanks very much for being here. Is Dr. Snow here? I don't see he was scheduled to give the invocation tonight. All right, Pastor Porter, can we call on you? To give the invocation, if you'd all please rise for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, we thank you for this extraordinarily beautiful day in our city. It fills us with gladness. We look forward to the fall season coming, Father. We look forward to change and improvements in our current situation with COVID and with the state of the nation. God, we know that you are over and above everything, our own trials and tribulations. And so, Father, we lean toward you for guidance and support. Father, we thank you for those that serve us here at the city. God, give them a clearly defined and good agenda for the evening. Father, may we make wise decisions always when it comes to the benefits and the care of the citizens of this city. Father, we just thank you. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, BBC. Thank you, Pastor Porter, for filling in. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Pollard.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
Alden.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Hopper. Colton.
Here. All right, we do have a full council to hear the items of business before us this evening. I got to turn. Councilman Hopper is attending by Zoom, which we give that opportunity to our council members and to the public if they choose to. So again, we do have a full council to hear the items of business before us. Are there any items on the agenda that present a conflict of interest for council members? Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? I understand we have one council president. Mr. Mayor. Yes.
We need to amend the agenda by accepting the following addition under special presentation, the proclamation, To See Kids Succeed Week.
Thank you. We have a motion to amend the agenda under special presentations, adding a proclamation for To See Kids Succeed Week. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McGee. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. The agenda has been amended to include that special presentation. That moves us then to the first presentation, which is by Crime Stoppers of Southwest Idaho. I don't know who's going to make that. Welcome. If you could just please give us your name and address for the record, it'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Kenny Pittman, P-I-T-T-N-A-N. Address is 5252 West Braveheart Drive in Eagle, Idaho.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. We appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you to give you an idea of who Crime Stoppers is and what we actually provide the community. You got the clicker? Can we go to full screen there? Thank you very much. First, real quick, Mr. Mayor, Council, if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce the president of our board, Bree Mason, and another board member, Lisa Wilson. They're my support today.
Welcome to all of you. Nice to have you here this evening.
Crime Stoppers of Southwest Idaho has been around since 1981, so just about 40 years. Crime Stoppers has been helping local communities in Southwest Idaho help bring criminals to justice. What is Crime Stoppers? We're a nonprofit 501c3. It's all run by volunteers, and the board of directors are all volunteers with real jobs outside of the community. We provide valuable information to local law enforcement agencies. That's our core business. That's what we do. That's some of the services we provide. We provide an anonymous way for individuals to report criminals, crime, and such. And it's the only way that we know of in the communities that we serve that has a way for people to anonymously, give information to bring criminals to justice. A lot of people won't do that, if they don't remain anonymous because of retribution, things like that. So we're one of those ways, to do that, the only way that I know. We offer rewards, of course, for capture of those, individuals, that are wanted, and we pay out rewards of up to $1,000 depending on the crime and so on and so forth, and how long it took them to get caught. Our source of funding, we partner with cities like this, and we partner with individuals, businesses, so on and so forth. So that's how we fund our program. What Crime Stoppers is not, we're not a law enforcement department by any means, we just partner with them. We're not federally funded, we're not state funded. We're looking into possible restitution, we have to go to the state for that, the legislative branch, to create that, if we can potentially get that. That's what we're looking to do to help with some of the funding needs that we have. Crime Stoppers of Southwest Idaho encompasses these 13 cities and more. I just wanted to show you the Boise, Caldwell, Nampa, Eagle, Meridian, Kuna, Middleton, Star, Garden City, Twin Falls, Mountain Home, Ada County unincorporated, and Canyon County unincorporated. And you can see the average population currently in those designated areas. We're here today to educate, to share, and to give you updates on our program. To educate, crimes happen every day. It's a sad statistic, but they do happen every day. And in order to keep the community safe, we need a way to provide anonymity to those that turn these folks in so that we can keep the criminals off the street. There's 3 ways they can do that. They can call us anytime, and you're probably familiar with this number, 208-343-COPS. Everybody's probably heard that number. It's been around for about 40 years now. You can visit our website at crimestoppersswidaho.org. Or right now, you can actually download a free P3 app from the Google Play Store or the App Store. These are the kind of tips that we receive as an organization. We receive tips on narcotics, fugitives, fraud, child endangerment, drive-by shooting, sexual assault, burglary, domestic violence, child porn, rape, robbery, gang activity, and more. I couldn't get the whole list on my screen. It would probably take this to a 30-minute, 40-minute presentation to give you all of the calls that we actually receive on our tip line. We're here to share that Crime Stoppers is a valuable program to the local law enforcement agencies, both inside and outside the state. So sometimes we get calls that come in from outside the state because that's where the criminal is. So we do share with other Crime Stopper entities in other parts of the other states, so that we can all, help each other. We've also captured hundreds of wanted felons in the last 40 years. It's provided a safe and secure way to report these individuals, and it continues to pay out these rewards. And if you can imagine the number of calls we get and the number of captures that we get, rewards are hurting our pocketbook right now. To give you an update, Crime Stoppers' annual budget now has reached $100,000 a year. In the last 39 years, we were around $25,000 to $35,000 for our annual budget. And now you might look at that number and go, why did it increase so much this year? Well, one of those reasons is because we used to have a liaison at the Boise Police Department that was a paid part-time employee for the department. That was our liaison and would run our program as far as the P3 software. He would also be our face on local news reporting. He was just that was their way of helping the program. Unfortunately, with some new laws that have just been established, we can no longer use that liaison at the Boise Police Department. So now we have to look at funding that with an employee, which could be a potential part-time employee. That's what we're looking at right now. Expenses for our program is the TIP software. Every software needs to be upgraded every year, so we have a software that we have to upgrade. We have a 24-hour call center that we pay for. We have a mobile phone, trailer equipment, marketing materials, and of course, I just mentioned the future part-time employee. The administration costs will include the employee and payroll taxes, along with workers' compensation and all of those things that you have to have for employees. Our program is struggling, as are most businesses and programs like ours because of COVID. One of the things that we didn't get to do was our annual fundraiser, which is basically what raises all of our money for the year. And we were unavailable, we couldn't do it. We're asking communities like yours to help. At this time, we've already partnered with the city of Eagle, and they have graciously provided $3,500 for fiscal year 2021, and that's a proportionate share on a per capita basis for administration costs for our program. I actually happen to know somebody that's on the council over there, and that's me. But I, you know, I recuse myself. The services provided by Crime Stoppers in Southwest Idaho, I've listed several here. Crimes and individuals are publicized on a regular basis by all media outlets, including print, broadcast, web-based partners, and special attention is given to unsolved crimes, and we do reenactments and things like that. That's all it costs for us, that we provide your community and all the other communities that you saw earlier. We provide that at no, currently at no charge. We determine the amount and method of the reward of payment that works closely with law enforcement. So we have to decide what kind of reward do we want to hand out. Local law enforcement agencies receive and process the anonymous tips that we get, and it goes directly to them so that they can go solve that crime. Crime Stoppers programs offer cash rewards of up to $1,000, as I explained earlier. It provides support and education to schools and crime-fighting programs, and our liaison at the Boise Police Department was great for that. He was a resource officer at those schools. He's a retired police officer, and we had all those connections. We're actually losing that connection with him, and now we have to figure out how to build those relationships with those schools and partner with them, to continue to keep our schools safe. It's cost-effective crime-solving tool for law enforcement. It doesn't really cost them anything to use our product right now, and that's what we're offering is our product. We're offering a way to get criminals off the street. We connect, once again, with media, law enforcement, and the general public to provide safety for that community. We offer on anonymity. That's another service that we provide to the tipsters, and no other program provides that. We offer a local telephone number that I mentioned earlier, 343 COPS. The P3 software, the mobile application, and the website, and all of that is free to our community to use, and we don't mind that. It provides local city protection keeps the most wanted criminals out of their area, and that's important for all. Safety and security of our communities is the #1 priority. Proportionate share of administration costs per capita. This is how we have to do it now. The $35,000 that we used to have to raise every year was all done by the board of directors. All volunteers. We have to go out there and solicit those funds. And $35,000 was hard enough to get, but $100,000 is even harder. So what we propose to do is create a service partnership agreement with local cities that we provide our services to. And approximately right now we're at 11 cents per capita per individual resident in community. So an example would be Eagle, population 32,000 at 11 cents, $3,520. We receive $3,500 from the city of Eagle to partner with them with an agreement. Caldwell's per capita, if you look up there, is approximately 60,000 in population. So at 11 cents, we're looking at about $6,600 in a service product relationship. The partnership with Crime Stoppers pays directly to the administration costs. Keep in mind that by law, you can't give us money and us give it right back out for rewards. So it would actually take care of purchasing the employee that we talked about, keeping us with marketing material, the insurance, all of the things that we now have to budget for. All rewards that are going to be paid out will be still earned and received by the board of directors. We'll go out there and get the sponsorships from those individuals and businesses so that we can pay out those rewards. Here's an example of possible funding for 2021 for us, and I've broken it down by city that I read off earlier in the presentation. You can see the population, you can see the service partnership agreement at that 11 cents, and to date, you can see we have $3,500 right now for our 2021 budget. That's not very much. Total budget for $100,000 for 2021. The total budget that with the 13 communities that I have named is approximately $88,000. So it's like the 80-20 rule. We're hoping to partner with those communities for 80% of our administration costs, and then the other 20% will be raised by the board as we've done in the past. But right now, our fundraising, if you look up there, our fundraising donations for 2021, we're at a measly $2,000. and we've received 3,500 from the city of Eagle in their partnership. So in the very bottom right-hand corner, you can see, we're still looking for $94,500 in partnership and in, sponsorships through the community. Here's the question you guys all knew that was coming. Can Crime Stoppers count on you to community partner with us to keep our local communities protected and safe? Let me reiterate that if you answered yes, we're ecstatic, we're happy, we'd be glad to, partner with your city. And if we want to make this a reality. But if you were to say no, it's not that we're turning Caldwell off and we're not going to provide the services. We will still provide the services that you've grown to know over the last 40 years with Crime Stoppers, because even if we can't partner with your program, it's important that we keep all of our communities safe, and that includes yours as well. My name is Kenny Pittman, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Kenny. Lisa or Bree, anything that you would like to add, or, did I get that right?
Yeah, great, yeah, you're right. I just want to thank you guys for your time. I've been on the board for 4 years now, and the biggest compliment that we get from our local law enforcement is the amount of knowledge that Crime Stoppers provides them. Every time an officer walks into an unknown situation, the more knowledge they have, the better. And they have repeatedly thanked us for the anonymous tips we receive, just because essentially they walk in with a better understanding of what they're walking into. So, thank you, I just appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you, Bree. Lisa, did you have anything to add there?
Commissioner, I did forget to mention that I wrote down, I didn't actually put it in my presentation. In 2020, there's been 66 cases listed by Crime Stoppers in your community. 5 arrests have been, made on those 66 cases, in a 9-month period. And that was because of tips from Crime Stoppers, so I want you guys to know that stat as well.
Thank you.
Is any other questions?
Any questions from council?
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Muller?
I don't have a question, but I just, number one, want to thank you guys. Volunteers are important to run an organization, and I want to thank you for your time. But I do have one question. Where's your call center located?
Call center's in Canada, it's up north. In Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we do have a mobile phone that right now currently the liaison at the Boise Police Department, and they've graciously given us to the end of the year to transition. That's why we're starting our funding now, because that gives us a quarter to do that. And so basically, he has a mobile phone, and during his day, it's on and he takes those calls because it saves us money. If we have to turn it completely over to the call center, we get charged per call. And there's hundreds and hundreds of tips that come in every month, and it's quite a lot.
So the calls are taken by volunteers?
Well, it's a call center phone, they're paid, yeah.
So, and the reason why that it is in Canada, there's Crime Stoppers USA, which is a national program, and because of the P3 software that we use, there's only a handful, there's like 3 call centers that can utilize that software to put out the calls. And a couple others that we've been looking into, we've graciously been grandfathered in on pricing, but with the restructuring of not having our liaison anymore, we will most likely have to look at going to a 24/7 call center, and then we would reestablish at that point to make sure that that still makes sense, or if there's somewhere else.
Thank you.
Mr. McGee?
Yeah, thank you. Can you answer my first question? That was the interactions that you've had with Caldwell. It sounds like there's been numerous. My next question is, what was the change in law that occurred to where you can't use the liaison now with the Boise Police Department? What changed or what happened?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we were I can't remember if they gave us the statute or the law that was changed, but Bree and myself, Bree being the president, and I'm pseudo vice president of the organization. We met with the Boise PD attorney, and the deputy chief, along with I can't remember, she was HR person or something like that. And they had indicated that there was a change, and that for Boise to be able to pay for an employee working for an outside entity, whether it's a 501c3 or not, it's not legal anymore. So that's what we were told, and once again, I'm not an attorney, so we have to go with what they say. So it threw us for a loop, because of the last 39 years, we've had a liaison at the Boise Police Department helping us through this program, you know, so that, it can remain active. And we're just afraid that we're gonna lose that opportunity, and we can't. So we're making this presentation and asking all of the communities that you saw up there, via the mayor and city councils, to, look for that in their budget. I know you guys probably just signed it, sent it off, I know we did. But there's some general funding, amendment money probably that could potentially help us, and we would appreciate it.
Thank you. I've got bad news and good news for you. What do you want first?
Take the bad news, leave on a good note.
The bad news is, you're right, we just passed our budget, and unfortunately, that amount is not included in there. The good news is, our, finance director has a money tree in her office, and we've been watering it and giving it all kinds of fertilizer here lately. So we'll see what the money tree says after your presentation, okay?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Council, we appreciate your time, thank you again.
Thank you, Lisa, Bree, Kenny, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for your volunteer work. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the fun this evening, or you can leave whichever.
I have mine tomorrow night, so I'm gonna.
Oh, okay. All right, the next, presentation is by Treasure Valley Community College, Caldwell Campus. Dana, President Young, is that going to be you? Okay.
Well, my name is Dr. Dana Young, and my address is in Ontario, Oregon. And first I wanted to thank you, Mayor Mancola, President Collier, and members of the council for your time this evening and for the opportunity to give you an update about what we've been doing. I brought some members of my team with me this evening that I wanted to introduce. So first we have Vice President Eddie Al, and Senator Abby Lee, who is the Associate Vice President of College Relations, and...
I've never met her,
I know, nobody knows her. And, Information Technology, she's over that too, so. And, Kim Tompkinson, who is our Director of the Caldwell Center. And, you know, we really consider this, in our mind, this is, you know, Caldwell Community College. And we're excited to continue to work with you and continue to grow with Caldwell. So with that, I am going to turn this over to our wonderful director, Kim Tompkinson, and she's going to lead you through this evening's presentation.
Well, thank you very much, and again, whenever you need me to, once this craziness stops, I guess, I'm happy to come back over and address your board again and answer any questions they may have. So anytime you would like to have me come do that, I'm honored to.
You will do it because they've been asking for you. They want a song.
I can do that too.
Or poem.
Well, either one,
Okay.
you name it, I'll do, or both,
Or both, yes.
whichever you want.
Yes, they love it, and they love hearing from you, so.
Okay,
Thank
We'll
you
get
for
it
the
scheduled
wonderful
soon.
partnership, and,
You bet.
with that, I'll turn it over to Kim.
we'll get it scheduled soon.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Hi, Kim, welcome.
Thank you, I can't take the mess.
Otherwise, I can't breathe.
So I want to echo Dana's sentiments of the gratitude that TVPP feels to be a part of the Caldwell community. And we really appreciate the continued support that we receive, not only from city officials, but also from the community at large. And so it feels like home here. And I hope that our students are grasping that feeling as well as they go through their programs and study. We've been here for an extended period of time, and we'd like to see that continue and to grow with Caldwell as Caldwell grows. And I watch it grow, I think, every time I drive down the freeway. We're here in accordance with Section 28 of the Caldwell Center Treasure Valley Community College Lease Agreement, and we're here to report on enrollment, academic trends, future plans, new programs under development, and the related information that is directly supportive and related to the Caldwell Center operations. So during the 2019-2020 school year, we started out really strong in March. We hosted an expo at the Fort Idaho Center, and it was a huge success. We had industry partners from all different types of business and industry, especially in the field of technology. Over 800 students attended, and we got great feedback from students, school officials, sponsors, and industry representatives. That was all very positive. We were hoping to do that again in
the upcoming year, but due to COVID, everything is so unpredictable that we're just holding off. It might have to be later in the year or put off until the following year. Shortly thereafter, in late March, the decision was made to suspend our wrestling program due to the high contact nature of the sport and the restrictions that COVID induced. And so we're reassessing our program currently and hope to begin it again. We're looking at different options for coaching and for facilities for training, and we'd like to open that back up because it's probably the only option locally that kids have after high school to participate in the sport that they love. During the 2019-2020 school year, we served 665 distinct students, and the credits that they generated was 6,385. And so the enrollment drive, as you know, the rent on our building, and it also allows us to expand our programming, to advertise, to work on retention efforts, and to do other functions that are closely related to the college and the community. So we need approximately, and this is a high estimate, about 3,600 more credits or 80 more full-time students to move up to the next benchmark of that rental agreement. So this year has been a challenge, as you guys have felt probably, and we, feel it every day due to the impact of COVID. And so beginning in March, when COVID became a reality, we implemented several measures to ensure the safety of our students, our staff, our faculty, and our communities in order to not spread the pandemic any further. So we've offered virtual classes in the spring and in the summer, and we're resuming in-person instruction in a week, Monday the 28th, for the fall term. And this has made it so that we were forced to reduce our class sizes. So basically, probably about half of each class has been cut in about half in order to implement social distancing standards and to make sure that we have all the safety measures in place. Our helicopter program continues its success, and we're pleased to keep that partnership strong with Silverhawk Aviation. They have been great partners and wonderful to work with. And over the summer, because our pilots were grounded in March, they were anxious to get back into the air, and we had to work closely with Southwest District Health to make that happen so that they could safely resume flights, and they did so in the summer. So our students were able to progress in their program. Our plumbing apprentice program it started up again. It's had 2 sessions already, and it will continue through April, and they're following the safety standards that we put in place. We've enrolled new first-year students, and we graduated some last year, and so they all kind of moved through the funnel through the program until they finish their 4-year program. And we're advertising in order to solicit more, because as the building goes up all around us, I think plumbers are more in need than they were before. So the future plans that we have in Caldwell, as you know, we started a cybersecurity and welding program. Those are getting off the ground still. The welding program is still housed at Elevate Academy. They've been excellent partners as well. And we're talking about dual credit options for their students so that when they get theirs up to the level where they can be beginners at college level, they'll earn college credit too. So we focused on specific programs that will be completely delivered out of the Caldwell Center, so students can start and finish a program here and not have to travel to Ontario to take the remainder of their courses. And those are cybersecurity, welding, addiction studies, early childhood education, and criminal justice. And I've been talking to counselors for the past year about what students are looking for, what are they interested in, what do they want to study. Although I hear culinary arts a lot, which I would love to have. Don't know that that's a reality yet. But I do hear often that people want to be teachers, they want to study law, or they want to go into the justice field. And so we decided to offer the things that people are asking for in hopes that we'll graduate grow our own talent here, and so teachers in classrooms and law enforcement officers on the streets to help keep our community safe. These programs are in their inception right now as far as full delivery. So we'll have more data when we meet again next year to deliver on our progress there. Since December of 2019, we've been working feverishly, I would like to say, on the development of an airframe and power plant aviation mechanics program, which will operate out of an airplane hangar that has been generously purchased by the city of Caldwell, thanks to some hard work on the part of Carol and Steve Bolt, and Brent has been involved in that as well. So we've had discussions ongoing, and progress is moving, although as you probably are aware, when you have to deal with a federal agency like the FAA, it is not ever fast. So we're working towards our goal. The following steps have been taken, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but it highlights the most important things. We've met with the Idaho Workforce Development Council to initiate a request for an industry sector grant, to help with the startup cost of the program, because those are going to be quite large. And we've met with several aviation companies, some right here in Caldwell, Silverhawk, Cumulus, and Threshold Aviation have all signed MOUs, and are supportive of our program and will take on apprentices, as well as Aviation Specialties Unlimited, which is also known as ASU, and they have been really excellent. And they even came out to the hangar, so we just walked through last week, and gave us some tips on how to renovate it so that it's up to FAA standards and will suit the education of mechanics. In addition, Western Aircraft, and they have a very large facility that we went through, and they're building a new one that will open in approximately a year, and they plan to hire 85 mechanics. So, I want to get this program going so we can give them the mechanics that they're looking for. We've also submitted a pre-application to the FSDO, which stands for the Flight Standards District Office in Boise. And pre-application comes before actual application, and there are several steps in between, when you pre-apply and then when you're granted the approval to run a 147 flight school or maintenance school. We've discussed potential partnership with Ridgeview High School. The principal is very supportive of that, as well as their superintendent, and we'd like to offer dual credit options for their students so that they can have aviation there at their school. We visited the ISU, Idaho State University's AAP program, which has been in existence since, I believe, the 1920s. And Michael Evans, who has recently retired as their director, has been influential in helping us get ours started and knowing what to look for, where to look for, and how to go about the process. And he's sort of an unpaid consultant at this point, because we, in reality, have no money to work with yet. We've met with City of Caldwell staff members to discuss the renovation plans, as I mentioned, so that the hangar can meet FAA standards. We have frequent ongoing discussions with the Estagos organization, which is a nonprofit organization that you might be aware of, that helps to rehabilitate homeless people and get them into jobs. They've located an airplane that will be donated to the program in the amount of about $40,000 in value, as well as pledged $20,000 towards the purchase of toolkits. And an uncle in my family has generously donated his elaborate tool set that is valued about $18,000.
Wow.
He's a retired mechanic for Boeing and a former Air Force mechanic as well. And now he's in South America somewhere on a mission. So we've also discussed plans with Caldwell High School, and this is moving from aviation to other initiatives that are underway, to start an automotive technology program. We've had discussions with the College of Western Idaho. They're supportive, and we will likely train first year and then funnel those students into their second year of the program, so that it keeps their program sustainable without us technically competing with them. Caldwell High School and Dr. French are also very supportive, and we're looking at other options for dual credit so that we can get Caldwell High graduates into programs right here in their community where, according to Dr. French, they would like to stay. A lot of these graduates tend to stay around home and stay close to home. So I'm not sure that they're very aware of what we really have right here. So the goal is to get the word out and to get school officials on board so that we have that close connection. We are working with other schools as well to offer dual credit options to their students and enroll them in what we call our College Choice Program, which is the 2 weeks prior to every term. The high school students can occupy any vacant seats that are in a class that has not filled yet. And those schools are, of course, Elevate Academy. I think I've enrolled 19 of their students to take Spanish. So we'll see how that goes. Also, ICC Virtual High School, which is an all-online high school. I've enrolled, I believe, 8 students in online courses and a few in face-to-face courses from that school. And they have students all over Idaho. They serve about 800 students every year. Canyon Springs High School, I've had discussions with Lisa Velasquez, and we are talking about dual credit options that would begin in the fall of next year, so 2021. And a few of her students have followed their instructor, who is a criminal justice instructor now for TCDC, to take classes on the Caldwell campus. And also Union High School.
which is where we've offered our industrial manufacturing program, and it's been very successful there. So our goal is to offer pathways to these students, at the high school level, so that they complete their high school graduation and then continue in their program at Treasure Valley to graduate and go on into the workforce. Because several of our programs, after 2 years or even less, will put people right into jobs that are well-paying jobs and that are sustainable. So as we look into the 2021-22 school year, we're working to expand our offerings in Caldwell to meet the needs of business and industry. And therefore, we've initiated discussions to secure more externships for our medical assisting program. That seems to be where the bottleneck lies, is trying to find the externships, so we can only accept a certain number of students, because then they're on hold until they can do their practical experience. So we've been talking to some potential partners to see how we can make that happen and enroll more students. As far as our community involvement, we've signed an updated MOU over the summer with the YMCA here in Caldwell to continue our partnership to offer physical education classes for TDC students, and they've been an excellent partner, and we work very well together. The Caldwell Fire Department has been able to continue their necessary training at the Caldwell Center, and we've had discussions just this last week with some city officials about using some space there that we vacated where the bookstore was, in order for them to have a larger space to have their training. And Bridges Coffee Shop, if you've been there, you know the food's very good. They've been a welcome addition to our center, and they're sustainable at this point. I had a discussion with someone, Carol, the other day, and they're finally looking like it might be a long-term project that they can stick with. And they've had several challenges with COVID-19, as you know, with seating and restrictions that they have to follow, but they keep a stiff upper lip and just plug forward. And then in December of 2019, we were pleased to host the Superintendent's Joint Legislative Meeting at the Caldwell Center, where superintendents from all over the state gathered to discuss the critical aspects of education and make some decisions that will affect our youth here in our community and those statewide. We're excited about the future. We're working hard to keep a safe space, a safe place for students to learn, as well as provide educational opportunities that these students are seeking. And we appreciate your confidence in us, and we plan to do all we can to grow TDCC in Caldwell and to train the professional and technical talent of its citizens. And we'd like to hear your feedback, your suggestions, so that we can know what we can do better to serve the city of Caldwell. Thank you. And if we entertain questions, then I would defer to Abby and Eddie, since that's why they came.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. And do you have copies of that you can give?
Yes,
Oh, is it the same? It is the same. This is it? Okay, I apologize, I didn't know it was the same one. Thank you. Dana, did you have anything else you want to add? I mean, President Young, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, whenever you give us microphones, you have something more to say. But as you can see, Kim has been very busy, and she has been working closely with folks in the area just to make sure that we are listening to business and industry and listening to all of you to find out what kind of training we need to be doing. And we're just so pleased to be part of this community. So thank you once again for the opportunity to serve you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments for the council? Or you just here to answer questions that we have?
We're here to answer questions, but, so in Oregon, we're required to wear masks, but in Idaho, we can defer, right? We're happy to answer any specific questions. This is really our first time to be able to come to the council, although it feels very familiar, and we are so appreciative. Mayor, when you go downtown, Caldwell, and John and Jeremy, Mike, everyone, this is just a phenomenal downtown. We recognize the value of that real estate, and we are really committed to continuing to be a good partner and to grow our programs and to do the things that will make you proud to continue to be our partners. On another note, I appreciate what you do in your service to your city. I appreciate the decisions that are made here at the local level and the hard decisions that you make. And I'm grateful every day when someone calls me and I can say, you know, that sounds like a local decision. You should call your city council or your county commissioners. Exactly, right? I know, I could see when John was like, what law changed? And I'm like, I don't think that was a law, but I'll research that. But again, you have a long evening ahead of you, but we, again, are so appreciative. If there's more that we can do, please reach out to us. Thank you, Mayor, for your continuing friendship and support.
Any questions from council? Yes,
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
remember,
sir.
I remember way back when, we were in the planning phase of this, one of our goals was to help our high school students gain that higher education, to receive, not necessarily a degree, but at least a certification for welding or electrical or whatever, with the desire to be able to keep them home, keep them here in this area, and this program is working, and I'm just, really proud that we were a part of that.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay.
Mr. Pollard?
A couple of comments and then a question. First of all, about 2.5 months ago, my wife and I were up in Reagan, and we took a helicopter tour, and the young man that was piloting, I asked him, I said, where did you get your license? And he says, well, I went to the aviation program at TVCC and then went to Silver Hawk and got my license. And I felt completely safe with him. And my wife works with a lady, they work at R&M Steel, and her nephew is in your aviation program right now at TVCC and speaks very highly of it. Now, let me ask a question, and Dana knows, many years ago, when Kathleen was the director, Kathleen and I met, and I suggested that we start a Church Valley Community College Advisory Council. And she and I worked, and we created a mission statement and put some names together, and we started meeting. But I have not heard, and even before COVID, I have not heard about if that council is still meeting or not.
Okay, there's some things that I,
Well, it sounds like we missed that step with Caitlin left, and we will
Pardon
reiterate. It sounds like we missed that step when Caitlin left.
Well, we were still meeting when Caitlin was
Right.
there.
And so we need to make sure that we transition that back over to Kim. So thank you for that
Okay.
reminder.
Any other questions for Treasure Valley? Again, as long as we're telling small world stories, our communication specialist, her fiance, graduated from TVC's program, helicopter pilot program, and he was working for one of the cruise lines, flying all over South America. And then, of course, with COVID, that came to an end, but then he was able to get picked up during the fire season, and he's now flying helicopter for, I don't know if it's Idaho, I don't know if it's Idaho or which state, but for the Forest Service program for the fire. So anyway, so it's very valuable to so many people. We've heard such success, but not just that program. The Fire Sciences program, we've had great success with other, everything from the very beginning. You've been so proactive in adapting to what the community needs, and we appreciate it. Welding program was certainly something you put into place when our businesses said they needed it, so thank you for that. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, our next special presentation is from the Caldwell Senior Center. And you're also welcome to stay, or you can maybe leave it. You can pull that down. There you go.
Okay. My name is Donna Crockett. My address is 3001 Manchester Drive, here in Caldwell. I'm the chairman on the board of directors at Caldwell Senior Center. And I'm going to attempt to try and bring you up to date on where we are and what we're doing. First, we shut down for a while, as everything did. We started our lunch program back up again on the 15th of June. And from then to now, we've served 2,449 meals to those who eat in-house. And we've put together 189 what they're calling curbside meals. They call in and say they would like a meal, and we package it up. They stop in, pick it up, and take it home. So we are following and doing all we can, to keep everybody safe. We ask that they do hand sanitizer before they go through the lunch line, before they pick up their food. Wear a mask, and if they get up and wander around, I mean, it's a little hard to eat with the mask on. But if they get up and wander around, then we're gonna ask them to put their mask back on. We've also opened up bingo on the 25th of August. We opened up bingo, and that's going all right. We're asking them to also hand sanitize, before they go to the line to buy their tickets and to wear a mask. And if they get up and wander around. We don't have quite as many people as we'd like to have, because again, all of the proceeds from the bingo on Tuesday night goes back to the center, because we're a nonprofit thing. We've opened just about everything back up. They're doing exercise classes, foot clinics twice a month. The only thing that really has not opened back up is the Friday night dance and line dancing on Monday afternoon. They're square dancing, they're playing pinochle on Tuesday afternoon, and I think that's pretty much everything we do. So I'd like to invite all of you, I did it the last time I was here, to come have lunch. It's a good lunch. It's an excellent lunch, actually. And to come play bingo on Tuesday night. We need you. The center needs you. So, any questions?
Thank you so very much, and again, thank you for your work and your service. I know that, I haven't been over there recently. I used to come several times a year and sing and give updates, but with COVID, I haven't been venturing far out, so I do apologize, but we'll, as soon as things get back to normal, I'll get back over there. I just want to say thank you very much for your service and for what that center provides for the seniors in our community, so we appreciate that. Any questions from council? I guess they're gonna let you off easy.
Pardon?
I guess they're gonna let you off easy. I guess they have a question. All right, thank you for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
You bet. And then the last special presentation is, what was added to the agenda. As you know, it's so important that we provide healthy environment for our families and children to thrive. As you know, the city of Caldwell does have a adopted youth master plan, a youth, Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. We have several subcommittees and, that function from that. We do everything from summits to legislative activities. But there's also now a countywide organization called 2C Kids. 2C Kids Succeed, I think is what it's called. And so I'd like to read a proclamation from that organization that they would like to make aware of the issues facing our youth during this difficult time in families. So whereas adverse childhood experiences such as abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, and other events that cause trauma in children can have lifelong impacts on individuals and communities. And whereas they are common in Idaho and most of the broader United States. And whereas a safe, stable, and nurturing environment and a connection to a consistent and trusted adult are critical proactive factors. And whereas our community has shared values for the well-being and support of our children. And whereas community members and local partners are working together to build healthy and resilient communities where kids and families thrive. Now, therefore, I, Garrett Nankolos, Mayor of the City of Caldwell, we hereby proclaim September 26th through October 3rd, 2020 to be 2 Kids Succeed Week in Caldwell, Idaho, where we will demonstrate and celebrate hope and resilience. So I just wanted to get that into the record, and that's a proclamation for families and kids for this upcoming week. All right, that concludes the special presentations. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council about an item that is not on the agenda? All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Pollard,
I move that we approve the consent calendar as printed.
thank you. Is there a second? A motion by Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. McGee, to approve the consent calendar as printed. And again, just for the record, these are items that are considered normal and routine in nature or completion of actions taken by council in previous meetings. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Pollard?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Alden?
Yes.
Wagner? Hopper?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The consent calendar is unanimously approved by the Colorado City Council. Takes us then to old business. This is an action item. This is to consider bill number 30, ordinance number 3287, amending chapter 10, article 12, section 10-1206 of the Colorado City Code. There was a public hearing on this item 2 weeks ago, and this is the item that was brought back forth after that public hearing. I will read it by its title only this evening and ask for council's consideration to waive the readings, waive the rules, pass it on its first reading by title only, and then to approve the summary for publication. This is known as Bill number 30, ordinance number 3287, an ordinance enacted by the Colorado City Council, amending chapter 10, article 12, section 10-1208 of the Colorado City Code, providing for staff level design review for certain design elements, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith. And again, just for the audience, if you were not here for that public hearing, what this simply is to expedite the ability for new businesses, for remodels, for the development community to make minor changes to buildings downtown or other places where these design standards are in place, and have staff level review rather than having to go through the design review commission. And so it helps move those things along more quickly and it's less costly. So that's what this bill is for, and I would ask for council's consideration. Yes. Mr.
I
Pollard.
move that we waive the three reading process and consider bill number 30, ordinance number 3287 on its first reading by title only.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. I have a motion by Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. McGee, to waive the three reading process, consider bill number 30, ordinance number 3287 on its first reading by title only. So the clerk call the roll, please.
Pollard?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Alden?
Yes.
Wagner?
Yes.
Hopper?
Thank you. The rules have been suspended.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Pollard.
I will sponsor bill number 30, ordinance number 3287, move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? A motion by Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. McGee, to sponsor bill number 30, ordinance number 3287, move for its passage on its first reading by title only, and to approve the summary for publication. And again, just real quickly, the summary allows us to publish a smaller document in the newspaper, which is more cost-effective for taxpayers, rather than publishing the ordinance in its entirety, like it used to be. So the legislature has authorized us to do that. The attorney makes a summary and publishes that, and then, of course, the ordinance in its complete form is available in the clerk's office at any time for the public's reading. So, all right, is there a motion then? Do you have a motion in a second? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Pollard?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Alden?
Yes.
Wagner? Hopper?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Bill number 30, ordinance number 3287 has been passed on its first reading by title only, and the summary approved for publication. That completes old business and moves us to new business. The first item is a public hearing regarding the vacation of a section of unopened right-of-way at 223 West Ash in exchange for a section of right-of-way for future continuation of Sunset Avenue. Again, this is a public hearing. I will declare it open. And there are sign-up sheets to my right over here if you wanted to speak, but did not sign up. We can certainly still have you do that. I'll open the public hearing and ask for staff's presentation. Mr. Orton.
Thank you, sir, members of council. This, item, you folks have a Sunset Avenue right-of-way that's adjacent to them, and there was a right-of-way to the south of their property that they desire to have vacated, and they have agreed to dedicate, right-of-way in place, or in consideration of having that right-of-way at the south of their property that exists and doesn't appear to be a viable, right-of-way for future connectivity, to be vacated. So, right-of-way at the south would be vacated, right-of-way would be created at the east. And here's the right-of-way in question that's to be vacated, and this would be the right-of-way to be created. To allow this to have a full roadway right-of-way. One thing to note is that the next item on the agenda is relevant to this. Should the council approve this vacation, then the next item should be considered. Should the council deny this vacation and retain this as public right of way, then the dedication of this right of way, which is the next item, should not be considered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll answer your question.
Thank you, Brett. Any questions from council? And again, obviously, staff, engineering department and public works supports this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. I have nobody signed up to speak at this public hearing. Is there anybody that wanted to? Okay. Hearing none then is, unless there are any further questions from council, I would accept the motion to close this public hearing. Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Allgood. Is there a second? A motion by Mr. Allgood, second by Mr. McGee to close the public hearing regarding a vacation of section of unopened right-of-way at 223 West Ash. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. That then moves us to item number 2 under new business, which, as Brett mentioned, is the ordinance associated with this hearing that was just held. This is known as Bill number 50, ordinance number 3297, and it is for vacating a section of unopened right-of-way at 223 West Ash in exchange for a section of right-of-way for the future continuation of Sunset Avenue. This is brought forward this evening with a request to waive the rules and pass it on its first reading by title only. There is no summary. I will read this bill by its title only and ask for council's consideration. This is Bill number 50, ordinance number 3297. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Caldwell, Idaho, vacating a section of unopened right-of-way at 223 West Ash Street in exchange for a section of right-of-way for the future continuation of Sunset Avenue, reciting that appropriate notice was given of public hearing, determining that vacation of said right-of-way be in the best interest of the City of Caldwell, and that said right-of-way shall be vacated, providing an effective date.
Mayor,
Mr. Carlson.
I would move that we waive the three reading rule and consider bill number, 50, ordinance 3297 on the first reading by title only.
Thank you. Is there a second? I have a motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Allgood, to waive the three reading process to consider Bill number 50, ordinance number 3297, on its first reading by title only. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Colson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Allgood.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Hopper.
The rules have been suspended.
I will sponsor bill number 50, ordinance number 3297, move for passage.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Carlson. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. McGee to sponsor Bill number 50, ordinance number 3297, and move for its passage on its first reading by title only. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Colson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Allgood.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Hopper.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Bill number 50, ordinance number 3297 has been approved unanimously by the Caldwell City Council. Takes us then to item number 3, which is also an action item to consider a resolution accepting the warranty deed from David E. Price and Sharon P. Price associated with the vacation of 223 West Avenue. And again, this resolution, I'll read by its title only, is just simply a resolution by the City of Caldwell accepting the warranty deed from David E. Price and Sharon P. Price for real property.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Carlson.
I will move that we accept the resolution as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. I have a motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Allgood, to approve this resolution regarding the accepting of warranty deed from David E. Price and Sharon P. Price as stated. Any further discussion? For the clerk, call the roll, please.
Colson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Allgood.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Hopper.
Thanks very much. Resolution has been passed unanimously by the Caldwell City Council. All right, that takes us to item number 4, which is a quasi-judicial public hearing, and I'll explain how those are held in just a moment. This is a public hearing regarding VBA North Ranch LLC requesting to annex 115 acres on the northwest corner of Highway 2026 and Smead Parkway, known as parcel number R35276, located in Canyon County. This is approximately 25 plus or minus acres of frontage on Highway 2026. It is proposed as C3 Service Commercial Zone, and 90 plus acres request to be zoned M1 Light Industrial, requiring a comprehensive plan amendment from commercial and service to manufacturing and production. The applicant is also requesting approval of a preliminary plat for North Ranch Business Park subdivision containing 33 total commercial and/or industrial lots. There are actually several actions that will be required by the council tonight. The first would be to annex the property. Obviously, if that fails for some reason, then the rest of it is moved. If the property is annexed into the city of Caldwell, then we will certainly take up the preliminary plat for North Ranch Business Park, and then we'll go forward with that decision-making process at that time. However, the testimony that will be given tonight will be for all of them. We will take testimony, the findings of fact, conclusions of law, the evidence list will all be gathered at the same time for both of those actions. So, again, just to explain how this hearing works, first of all, the clerk will swear you in here momentarily if you have signed up to speak at this public hearing, and on this one, it is required that you sign up to speak and be sworn in order to speak. So the clerk will swear you in just a moment, but we will first open the public hearing. Then staff will make the presentation regarding the request. After staff is done with their presentation, then the applicant or their representative will be able to give a presentation first. And then those who have signed up in support of the request will be called in the order in which they have signed up. Then we will take testimony from those who are neutral or who just have questions. And again, we will take those in the order in which they have signed up. Then we will take those who have signed up in opposition to the request, and we will take those again in the order in which they have signed up. After all testimony is given, and during that period of time, I will keep a list of evidence, if any is presented. The city attorney and I will both keep that list. And then after that, all that testimony is given, then the applicant is given the opportunity to give rebuttal testimony based upon the evidence and testimony given during the public testimony portion of the hearing. At that point in time, council can certainly ask questions of any person who has testified or any staff member. After the questions are done, if they feel like they're ready to begin the decision-making process, then we close the public testimony portion of the hearing and move forward with the decision-making process as follows. The first thing we do is approve the evidence list of those items of fact given during the public testimony portion of the hearing. Once the evidence list, again, that will be for both the annexation and for the preliminary plat. And then once the evidence list is accepted, then we first begin with the annexation. We'll approve a comprehensive plan analysis, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and render an order of decision. If the order of decision is positive with the annexation, then we will start over with the preliminary plat, and we will take, first we'll do a comprehensive plan analysis, findings of fact, and then conclusions of law for the preliminary plat. If that is approved, then of course we will close the public hearing. At that point in time starts the time clock ticking for a 28-day appeal process. Either side, if you're not happy, if it's approved or denied, can appeal the decision of City Council to District Court. So there is a 28-day process from the time that the order of decision is approved for that appeal process to take place. So that's all of it in a nutshell. I know that was a lot in a very short period of time. If there are any questions, we will certainly guide you through the process as you come forward. But again, this has a structure. So once you've testified, and we've given you the opportunity, and then we've asked questions, then you can't raise your hand and say, oh, I forgot, something else I wanted to say. We have to go in process. And again, that's just to keep it in order, and again, for rebuttal testimony, so that the person who gives rebuttal has an organized pattern to go through. So any questions on that at all before we get started? Okay, if you're going to testify at this public hearing, including staff, would you please rise, raise your right hand, and the city clerk will swear you in. Have you signed up to speak? If you've signed up? Okay, if you've signed up to speak, stand up, and we'll swear you in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. You've all been sworn in. So as you come forward tonight, what we'll ask you to do is give us your name and your address for the record, and then acknowledge that you've been sworn in, so that we can get all that on record. Okay? All right. I will declare this public hearing open, and again, this is regarding BVA North Ranch LLC request annex property and for a preliminary plat approval. Staff, who's gonna give the presentation this evening? Mr. Matt?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Mr. Ron Matt, Planning Commission, City of Caldwell, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and zip code 836. I'm going to take you through the Mayor Council draft report for that meeting on August 18th, 20. This is case number SMP 20-05, which is the comprehensive amendment, annexation 2003, annexation, and subdivision 2006, which is the subdivision North Branch Business Park. On August 18th this year, the public hearing was held to discuss the items on this agenda for a new development entitled Northwest Ranch. As mentioned, there are three portions to this application. The application consists of the request for annexation of 115 acres on the northwest corner of Highway 26 and Speed Parkway, located in Canyon County, approximately 25 acres plus or minus frontage on Highway 2026 is proposed as a C3 service commercial zone, and 9+ acres was requested to be zoned M1 light industrial, requiring a plan map amendment from commercial and service to manufacturing and production. Medicine category in the comprehensive plan. The applicant also requests approval of a preliminary plat for North Branch Business Park subdivision containing 33 acres of commercial and industrial lots. Within the R3 zone, the applicant proposes the construction of the gas station, convenience store, large medical office building with urgent care, banquet drive-through window, an office flex building, and various retail and office space. Within Zone 1 zoning classification, the applicant is proposing 9 or more light industrial buildings ranging from 55,000 square feet to 273,000 square feet. Developers support typical light industrial activities such as warehousing, distribution, light assembly, packing, office, and educational laboratory space. Staff has indicated in the staff report in the area of page 3, some design guidelines in relationship to the structure that are being proposed in the commercial area, as well as proposed in the industrial area. Landscaping on the project represents down the homes on the west and north boundaries. During preliminary review of this application, staff requested that a 30-foot landscaping buffer be provided on the northeast and west boundaries of the property. The applicant proposes a berm of landscaping of 30 feet wide and 5 foot high. It needs to be located on contiguously to the residential areas. We had originally mentioned that a fence would be built there, but I was informed that there's currently a fence in the area. And so I wanted to get that, for these areas, between both fences, because that can maintain. So we dropped the idea of additional fence.
And again, Mr. Bass, please speak as loudly as you can.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Transportation and connectivity. The subject, property, frontage is on Highway 2026, as mentioned, which is a major arterial roadway. As stated with the Urban Renewal Agency in Resolution 10-110-20, a creature designed to install at the expense of public roads, utilities, and irrigation facilities for the project. That's been ongoing for the last number of months. The engineering department, fire department, building department, police, Valley School District, Pioneer and Canyon Irrigation, and other agencies that are listed have been informed of this development. The engineering report identified as P81 is also part of the record, and the engineering department has identified those items that need to be completed and required as part of this development. Right-of-way improvements should be, the applicant is required to provide right-of-way dedication and street improvements as part of this request. In accordance with the City of Colorado, engineering requirements to be reviewed at the time of development or billing permit applications. Curb, gutter, sidewalk, landscape development required. All of the streets should be constructed in accordance with the City of Colorado standards or local road and specifications. We have here on the record, testimony of the hearing examiners meeting. We also have on the record those who spoke in favor and opposed the project. On the board decision, those are the conditions that are placed in the development agreement, as well as the item that we added to the application, at the end of the report entitled Conditions of Land Use Approval. It identifies the 30-foot wide landscaping strip and being as 4 foot high, 5 feet high, excuse me. One of the conversations from the hearing examiner dealt with the issue of allowed uses and special uses. He asked that that's something that should be considered, so I went back through the entire industrial zone classifications and identified those classifications that are scheduled to be permitted, and reviewed all those land uses, and devised this portion of the report is identified as A10. These were just for permitted uses. No special use permits are being considered for this property. Only permitted uses. Let's get that on the record. So as you look at the next 4 pages, it identifies those land uses that are allowed in the industrial zone, but are not going to be permitted with the application. They're struck out. I met with the representative of DBA, Curtis Stewart, and we reviewed these last Estate. There's been some questions on some of these. They may bring them up this evening, but I want to bring them this time. On page 2 of that report, food banks and soup kitchens will be allowed use. We're going to strike that from the record. There are other uses such as hardware, landscaping business, lumberyard, and nursery retail. The applicant was concerned that this is restrictive to some type of use, like a Zamzo's or the Lowe's. What we suggest is that we clarify these uses as part of the development agreement. There are a couple others that I wanted to bring to your attention. We struck out shooting gallery, but the applicant mentioned that with indoor shooting galleries would be prohibited. And that's really a different type of use. And I'm in agreement that an indoor shooting range with proper facilities will not be prohibited. One last one is truck and tractor repair and service. That one is still standing. I know what the type of applications we receive, those type of uses in the city would not be appropriate for this location. But the applicant may explain what they consider that to be should be a permitted use in this particular zone. That would be the end of my comments, Mayor and Council. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the council for Mr. Knapp? Mr. Mayor? Mr. Wagner? I do have a few. So I'll kind of jump in, and this may be kind of scattered because as I went through it, I just wrote questions as they came as I was reviewing the application, so if they're not in order, I'll apologize for that. So one of the questions I had was, in regards to the zoning, it appears that the zoning will bisect one of the buildings that's being proposed. So basically, the top portion of the building is M1, the bottom portion is C3. Now, it does show as separate properties, there'll be a property line going through the building, obviously that can be done through building code. But as a person goes out to the property, you don't see property lines, you just see the building. So I guess the concern I have is that can it create confusion for future users or tenants where they may come and be like, well, I can do this in this portion of the building, but right here next door I can't? Or with the zoning you're talking about, is that saying that the usage is going to be the same regardless of the C3 and M1 trust?
We talked about that, and based upon the uses under this list I just gave you, there are uses in the C3 that also are allowed in the R1, allowed in the M1. In regards to those uses, they're including overall into the industrial zone. So the question that we have to do, in the planning department is look at the use and determine if the use still meets requirements in one zone. So that's what we are responsible for looking at.
Yeah, make sure you keep up, that can be up, I think that just can be tricky, and that applicant can definitely talk about that, and the reason for that when they come up. You mentioned the fence, the berm, the fence, which I think is a great idea. So the fence, I know that there probably is an existing fence where the residential is, I'm gonna guess it's a wood fence. Is it not, is it a vinyl fence? I'm seeing head shake, okay, that answers that question, so. Wood fences don't last very long, vinyl do, so I'm glad that it's already a vinyl fence out there. The limitations of uses, I appreciate you putting that in. I know it's gone through and made kind of list of what my concerns were, and all of those were touched on. The applicant definitely talked about that, and ones that they agree with or don't. Another question was there any consideration for additional setbacks along the property lines abutting the residential zone? So this would be mostly for, on the west end, there's the Voyage Crossing. I know that the layout shows the building so many feet. Do you think it would be good or necessary to put in as a condition, a minimum setback more than what's the standard? Because I don't think there is a setback within the industrial zone on the side, I could be wrong on that. But obviously they have a landscape buffer, but just to ensure that we still have that landscape or the parking row and then the building, do you think there's any need for that, or do you think it's covered with the site plan that's in the project?
Yes, trying to find the correct site plan. The issue, definitely for the 30-foot landscape strip is, they have driveways in that back area and parking spaces. And what we try to do is limit the truck traffic. If you look at the, truck routes on page 29, the next slide. So with the 30-foot buffer and the driveway, it's pretty close to 60 feet from the property line. So we didn't ask for any additional setback based upon the design of this project.
So that's more or less covered, right, with conditions stated, you must deal with how it shows on here. You
Yeah,
can't
so,
move that over.
so if the building were modified, we would still be looking at that setback as we did in these drawings.
And I guess one last question for now, building height restrictions, particularly for that building A, which I think is that one in the top left corner there. And I can't remember the maximum building height. Was there any concern or any discussion on ensuring that building wasn't perhaps too tall for the residences on the west side of that property?
There is no building height in the industrial zone, and we did not put a limit on the height.
So for the applicant, we come up with people to address that too, just up here. That's it, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions for Mr. Matt? Thank you.
Before we begin testimony, the applicant, I only see one person signed up in favor, and I saw several of you that are from BVA. Did you intend to testify, Todd and others?
Mr. Mayor, City Council,
Because I've only got one signed up to speak, and that's Jeff.
and, the intent, and if we need to sign up, Mr. Mayor, we certainly can. The idea is, I'm here to present, and I've brought, our engineer, and our legal counsel, and if they can provide expertise that might be needed, then we would have them testify.
Would you please have them sign up, whoever has
Yeah,
not?
forward, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll just hand it over to you, sorry. Usually you can just come out here. I know you stood up to be sworn in, that's why I didn't see your names on the list up here today. Thank you. Okay, so, let's see. I still don't have your name on here, Tom. Are you not going to speak? Unless you signed up on a different one, I didn't.
No, I thought I had,
All right, in that case, Tom Peterson.
After that, Mr. Mayor, City Council, I am glad to be here. My name is Tom Peterson, 2775 West Navigator, Suite 220, 83642 in Meridian. I do acknowledge I've been sworn in. Appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. Let me just make a brief introduction. I'm the Vice President of Development for BDA Development, and I've indicated before, in the spirit of completeness and hopefully to make sure that we leave no stone unturned, I've also invited Mr. Rob Sunderledge of Forex Engineering, who's the chief engineer for this project. He's with us here tonight, as well as Jeff Wardle, our outside legal counsel. And they are available, and to the extent that they can provide expertise that I cannot, then hopefully they can fill in gaps if that is needed. I will not just simply regurgitate and be redundant of what Mr. Mapp has shared, but let me just hit on a few salient points. We do have a presentation here this evening. As indicated, BDA Development, we have submitted an application for annexation rezone and a comprehensive plan map change with respect to the North Ranch Business Park. And this, of course, is located at Smead Parkway and Highway 2026. If we can. This site consists of 115 acres, and the development of this site is strategically located and will really bring life flex to this area through commercial, medical, retail, and light industrial. And as we'll touch on just briefly here, the mixed-use component of this does require annexation, and then we're proposing a C3 commercial, service commercial zone along the Chinden corridor portion, and that covers the approximate 21 acres of frontage along Chinden. And then we are proposing the balance of the project, as we go to the next slide, the balance of the project consisting of approximately 94 acres be zoned as M1 light industrial after annexation. And it's important to note that we are requesting that same 94 acres be designated on the comprehensive plan map as manufacturing and production. As was indicated, within the C3 zone there along the very front portion that fronts Chinden, there are different uses that are proposed. A gas station with convenience store, there's a medical office, there's an urgent care and a banquet drive-through, and various pads for retail and other office buildings. And then along the back, and this here is a concept site plan, and that's important to know that at this point, we don't have every tenant signed up. Obviously, that'd be putting the cart before the horse. But what we have is a concept site plan, and along there there'll be buildings ranging from small office site flex type buildings to larger buildings of the light industrial nature that can range anywhere from 55,000 square feet to upwards of 275,000 square feet. And these would support the typical light industrial activity that you see in a light industrial park as this, such as warehousing, distribution, some light assembly, and packing, and other research and laboratory space. All of these, of course, are not only contemplated, but codified and allowed in the code, which is section 10.22. I do want to note that in terms, and I'll come back to this in just a moment, but at this point, and I'll be brief, but at this point I want to highlight that we have been working over the course of about 15 months to develop a product that will be attractive, that it will be engaging for the community. We worked with our architect, A.E. Urbia, and our engineer, Forex Engineering, to create a real top-of-class light industrial project, and this provides sort of an example of what this product will look like. And I will come back to that. What I do want to indicate, and I think this is a salient point, is that this project is currently located in Canyon County. To the east, now, notably, it's been zoned agriculture, and it's been farmed for a number of years, as anyone who's driven out there can see and attest to. To the east of the project is property zone C3, and that's where the Ambassador RV Resort is currently located. The new Valley View Elementary School, Middle School, will be located to the east of the property in an R1 low density residential zone. To the west and north are the Voyage Crossing and Marble Front West subdivisions, zoned R2. And finally, to the south is property zone C3 and C4 along the Chinden corridor. In terms of the public improvements, the The project is currently being, undertaken, the public improvements are being made as we speak by the city of Caldwell. And this is pursuant to a development agreement between BVA and the Urban Renewal Agency of the city of Caldwell, which was approved and recorded on June 11, 2020, and is found in the real, property records of Canyon County. This construction of the public improvement is scheduled to be completed here in the fall. I want to speak briefly, before I just hit a few points on annexation, zoning specifically, I want to sort of underscore the efforts that we have made to be good neighbors and to work with those, particularly those residents who live and abut the property. We pride ourselves at BVA to try and be good neighbors in the community. Growth isn't easy, and we recognize that. I have been very appreciative of the interactions that we've had with residents and neighbors. We had a neighborhood meeting, and since that time, I have met in person with on-site and received phone calls from several of the neighbors trying to answer any questions that I might have and address any concerns. And I'm going to briefly summarize some of the things that we've done to fit in and harmonize with the surrounding areas. As earlier indicated, the property abuts single-family homes on the west and the north. The buffer was brought up. I want to note that the Caldwell Municipal Code, section 10710, requires a 20-foot setback. What we proposed is a 30-foot landscape buffer. And in addition to that, although the code doesn't require it, not only do we have the 30-foot landscape buffer, but a 5-foot berm with dense foliage and the lights on the top. This picture is a rendering, obviously. It doesn't depict the full growth of what you might see there, but you can see the berm, the 30-foot setback, and the dense trees that would be on top. I think that's important to include, and we wanted to take that extra step. Mr. Mayor and esteemed council members, this will obscure the view of the industrial buildings. It mitigates light spillage. It mitigates noise that might emanate from the perimeter of the project. We have worked with, again, our engineer and our architect, performing and will perform photometric studies that will limit the light lumen so that we can ensure the light levels will be at 0 at the property line itself. Another enhancement to the project, not necessarily required, but something as a community citizen, we want to make these efforts to make sure that the concerns are addressed. Just a couple other things I wanted to highlight. If you look, and this was referenced by Mr. Mapp, the vehicular traffic, the way that we've worked with our engineers to make sure that this is not only doable, but it's an enhancement to the project and will serve to protect the residents from noise and light. What we have here is the internal truck routes will keep the traffic away from the residents. So in other words, the truck route keeps trucks off the perimeter of the project near the homes. It will be used through wayfinding signs, and this truck route that, as you can see, follows. Again, this is a concept plan, but we are keeping away from the residents to the extent we can. All loading docks are pointed inward, again, trying to minimize disruption to neighbors. And this, I think, goes also to these council members' comments with Mr. Mapp. The question of what is this setback exactly? We have the 30-foot landscape buffer, the 5-foot berm, the trees on top, the photometric studies that will keep light at 0 at the property line. In addition to that, we built in additional parking rows here, all along this line. So that pushes the buildings inward and away from the homes even further. So in total, there's 30 feet plus 120 feet, give or take a foot or two, of distance between property line and first facade of first building, which is a significant effort that we've tried to make in light of the fact that there are residences there. Let me speak for just a moment in terms of annexation, as that is the sort of the first hurdle that we're overcoming here tonight as part of this application. We are seeking the annexation of the project under Category A in the Municipal Code 10-1-8.1. BVA North Ranch LLC is the only title owner of the property, and the property is contiguous to other city property, thereby fulfilling the criteria for Category A annexation. As to the extension of sewer and water utilities, those are being extended to the project pursuant to the agreement with the urban renewal development agreement that I've already referenced and has been entered into county records. Importantly, and I want to hit on this just briefly, the proposed annexation is in accordance and is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan. First, the urban renewal installation of city services on the project is an orderly extension of those same services provided by the city. Second, the project is a natural and expected extension of the city boundaries because it's already surrounded on 3 sides by city property, and it really fulfills a much-needed objective of infill needs in the community. It avoids that sort of leapfrog type development. It's an infill project that provides for that natural growth. And finally, it does present a very attractive project in terms of cohesive design. It creates a sense of space. It creates a sense of purpose. The types of materials that will be used for this building, as I touched on briefly before, it's top-of-the-line materials. It's a product that I presently don't think is in the community. There'll be modulations in the facade. There's materials such as ethos, metal accents, concrete forms to provide texture and substance to the building, which does provide a very attractive product. In terms of the zoning, there would be a rezone to C3 in the M1 zones. As stated, we are requesting that the front approximately 21 acres that fronts the highway be zoned C3 service commercial, and the back 94 acres will be zoned M1 light industrial. The proposed uses are consistent with the permitted uses, as Mr. Mapp has indicated already, as codified in Code 10-2-2 of the land use schedule. The industrial buildings are also the permitted uses per the M1 zone. I want to note specifically that in Exhibit 17 of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, the city notes that C3 is the desirable zone along the highway there, that corridor. And for this reason, we're proposing C3 along the entire frontage. That same exhibit references the M1 zone, that it be located north of the C3 zone and off the highway. So in other words, we are proposing exactly what was contemplated and suggested by the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Let me speak, I guess, finally in relation to the comprehensive plan and map change to manufacturing production. The entire map, the 2040 Comprehensive Map designates the North Ranch site as commercial and service, and we're proposing that 21 acres remain as commercial and service, but seeking a change to the back 94 acres to manufacturing production to match the M1 zoning proposed as I've indicated. I do believe that that's an appropriate step to take at this time. This project's located on the outer perimeter of the city limits, which really is a better location for light industrial activity. Sky Ranch Business Park, of course, is directly across the street. And finally, this designation brings that desirable mixed-use component to the area as it is growing, as we all can tell. So with that, Mr. Mayor and esteemed council members, I can stand for questions and address anything you might want to discuss.
Thank you. For the record, Mr. Peterson's PowerPoint will be labeled CC 1000. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Peterson?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. First one is, is there a phasing plan? Do you know which part of the property you plan on starting construction and moving from there?
Yeah, great question, esteemed council members. In this particular project, we don't necessarily have a phasing plan per se. The activity and potential activity at this particular site is, there's a lot of activity. And so while we are anticipating that the commercial corridor there along the highway would be built out, at the same time, there is anticipated use that would be, sooner than later for the back portion, and for that reason, we don't have a phasing plan. We have to build this site out as uses come in.
Any question?
Right.
And so, yeah, kind of going off of that too, clarify, I know there was talk about, you know, the plans that were submitted and conditioning, you know, this is what you showed, this is what you're gonna build, but just to make sure that I understand, you would like flexibility in the building locations, perhaps the building sizes, so that as tenant or users come in, you can detail those for what they want, is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember Wagner, that's exactly right. What we've shown is a concept plan. What won't change, there won't be any deviation from the quality of the product that's used and the materials for the buildings. I mean, that's the whole point of this business park. That won't change. What could change is in this concept plan, there may be lot line configurations. There may be, depending on the tenants and the uses that come in, an adaptation to the concept. Generally speaking, the site plan itself is dictated in large part by the road layout. So it won't change that much, and it won't deviate very much because the roads dictate a lot of that. But yes, there is flexibility that we would request, and that does bring up a point that I did want to make, that in the staff report 17.5, it talked about the requirement that in a substantial compliance, and we do believe we'll have substantial compliance, but should there be a deviation from that, it would come back before the city council in a public hearing. And we would respectfully request that if we are in substantial compliance with the concept plan, that perhaps any such deviation could be made at the staff level, thereby saving council's time and the community resources to come back and have a public hearing any and every time that might occur.
And I agree with that, yeah, completely, that, you know, there needs to be some flexibility. The main issue there is the aesthetic, kind of the look of the building, that's what we want. The locations can change a little bit to that, so yeah, I just want to make sure we do have that flexibility and everything. We don't want to, and I'm sure you don't want to have to come back there every time you're gonna change the line 5 feet this way or whatever. I'll try to wrap maybe both of these up in one. Height restrictions, would you be opposed to putting a height restriction on it, whether it's not? And then also, are you in agreement with the limited usage for the zone that was presented by Mr. Matt?
Yeah, thank you. Let me address those one. There is, as was stated in the code in this M1 district, there's not necessarily, or M1 zone, excuse me, there isn't a height restriction included. What I do have is the information, as we work with our architect and our engineer and these light industrial type products that would go into here, let me just state that the clear height for the anticipated buildings is 32 feet, possibly 36 feet. Of a clear height, with a parapet in the structure, really to provide the type of light industrial parking we have that you'll see across the road, to be harmonious with that. Parapet and structure needs to be at a max of about 44 feet. And that's contemplated and it's consistent with uses in other industrial parks, including, as I mentioned, directly across the street in Sky Ranch. So that is our, although there's not, you know, necessarily a height restriction, for the record, and in the spirit of transparency, wanted to indicate that that's the maximum height of the buildings that we would be proposing here at this site. At most, right, the ceiling, no pun intended, would be with parapet and structure, 40 feet.
So that there was, say, a 50-foot height restriction condition in there, just to ensure that would...
Yeah, I believe that's fine. I'm gonna look over my left shoulder to legal counsel, but I believe that that's acceptable.
Yeah.
That's acceptable.
I believe that, the reason I said 50, I believe that in the commercial zone, that's where the 50-foot is there, so kind of made it correct.
Yeah.
And then limited uses, are you in agreement with those that were presented, or any changes on that?
Yes, and I appreciate the dialogue and the thoroughness of Mr. Mapp and the city in identifying those. What had been indicated, and I wanted to elaborate that on just a little bit, we aren't in disagreement of any of those. What we had discussed, and including the development agreement, is some definitions that would narrow what could be construed as a broad limitation. And I want to read into the records what those could be. At this point, we don't anticipate and we don't foresee with any level of certainty or specificity that any of these uses would be contemplated. But so that we're not back here, what we would request is definitions be included in the development agreement for the following: a landscape business, lumberyard, nursery, trucking terminal and yard, and truck and tractor repair. Now, let me be clear, as we look at, landscaping business and lumberyard, we don't have any anticipation that those will go there. Someone could argue, and it could be construed, that, for example, landscaping business and lumberyard might rule out a D&D supply, or a Zamsos, or even a Lowe's. I know people have a Lowe's there, but we want there to be definitions, that what we're really talking about here is a standalone lumberyard that really you don't see anymore. But that's what the definition is defining, as opposed to the more broader term that could be misinterpreted one way or the other.
Trucking terminal, you mentioned, I think, was that a truck, or truck yard, or trucking terminal?
Yeah, and the thought there is, again, there's no anticipation that we have a trucking terminal facility. And maybe it's just the, maybe I need to make a confession, I'm an attorney, my history is in law, so maybe it's just my paranoia, to be honest with you. But we would not want there to be any type of misconstruing to say that a trucking terminal or yard, for example, would prohibit a facility that might have 4 to 5 vehicles and light trucks or box trucks, and now that's excluded. So just sort of that more finite definition that gets a little bit more granular, I think, is what we're requesting in the development agreements.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Mr. Peterson? Mr. McGee?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Quickly, Mr. Peterson, I listened to your description of, obviously, one of the biggest concerns are the residential areas on the west side of the development. I understand that, based on your description, that it is 120 feet from property line to the facade of the buildings there in the northwest corner. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did. And let me be clear for the record, because I kind of went through that quickly. What we have is a 30-foot landscape berm, and then with the additional drive aisles, the approximation is actually 117 feet in addition to the 30-foot landscape buffer. So that is, just under the 150 feet from property line, the facade of the building.
Okay, and then, if I could call out, Mr. Mayor, under any deviation that you might consider, would that distance remain the same?
I don't know if I understand the question.
So if you were, let's say that structure in the back, you were to change that, you have the flexibility to change it, would that distance remain the same regardless of what?
I see. Yeah, I believe that's the case, and this is the moment of expertise. If it's okay for additional 45 seconds to invite Mr. Rob Sunderledge to address that specific point, if that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor.
Why don't we go ahead with your question, and then I'll call you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Paulson?
Mr. Peterson, in the past, we have annexed these three commercials and whatnot, and ended up with multifamily dwelling. Is there any of that planned in the future, or can you go on the record to say that will not happen at all?
As we stand here today, there are no plans to have residential as part of this project.
Any other questions for Mr. Peterson? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Sunderledge?
Mayor, council members, Rob Sunderledge, before I begin, 2775 West Avenue. Just to further clarify some of the questions that came up regarding the west boundary. As Tom mentioned, the 30-foot buffer is something that we want to maintain that throughout the entire residential boundary buffer. However, one of the topics came up with a larger building on the northwest corner, and that was one of the areas where there's concern about the distance. So I think that was what was specifically addressed when we're looking at that 30-foot plus 170, 150, 120 feet on that building. But if you notice on the building to the south, there's a little bit of a shift there, so we're not closer to a 95 to 100-foot separation. So I think that the conversation was directed towards that larger building, but that smaller building is within the same zone. And it still meets that same intent where we want to be close to that 100-foot separation from the property line. The larger building, looking at pushing that a little further separation with the larger buildings. So as far as the restrictions, it's not restricted. And I can let Tom speak to this, but I would say that the property is something we absolutely want to fix. And it's a dry mile of the parking. But I wouldn't want to go so far as to say 150 feet. There are several smaller buildings that I know we have that one, we would probably want to keep that closer to 100 feet, 95 to 100 feet. So, it certainly is an area, question parameter that we would help to, but,
That's your question, Mr. Meany?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
While you're there, I guess I have another question for you. And I'm sorry, also for the record, have you been sworn in? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and this brings us down to how many engineers does it take to screw in a light bulb, because, so we may want to get Brent in on this as well. Just a question about, I know that we ran into this issue on a property not too far from here, actually, where there was a berm and trees planned, and we got down and the trees were actually planted, then they had to go take them out because we found out there's an irrigation facility underneath there. Do we know, is there any irrigation facilities along that west property line that we have that same issue?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jordan.
Wagner, to my knowledge, there's no, and to my knowledge, I'm pretty darn certain up here, there's not any irrigation facilities in that area. There are a couple of minor private irrigation facilities through the middle of the property, and on the front of the property next to 2026, nothing in this area.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you.
And generally, that would be the pressurized irrigation, the bigger irrigation system would be equipment where you require the trees to be removed. We'll have some secondary sprinklers to maintain that.
That's how much irrigation. Thank you. Mr. Wardle?
Mayor, members of council, I'm going to be very brief, just to follow up and address the discussion that Mr. Peterson and I had about the development agreement. You know, we are generally in agreement that it's appropriate to address those uses by limiting them as part of the development agreement. When we discussed this at the Planning and Zoning Commission, you know, the hearing examiner raised, like, well, maybe we just do away with all conditional uses in the project. And I think that is ham-handed. And I think as we look at some of these uses, there very well could be an appropriate use where we come back with application to address how those get dealt with. The concern that we have with the list that staff prepared really goes to that definitional issue. Because we're talking about light industrial warehousing. Your definition of truck transfer, truck yard contemplates trucks bringing stuff into warehouses that is then distributed out in other trucks. So we've given a great deal of thought to this design to ensure that to the extent trucks are there, they are isolated and separated from those residences. So I think we're in general agreement with what's been proposed. The list as defined needs clarification that we're only talking about uses within the M1 portion of the property, because obviously we need the ability to do car washes and other things like that out of commercial. And two, it needs to be reflective of, if you don't want us to come back with conditional uses, that's fine, but we need to better refine, and that's something I can work on with Mr. Hilty, because I think it defeats the purpose for us to ask you for light industrial zoning for warehousing and have some of these things excluded. As Mr. Peterson pointed out, as proposed by staff, we arguably couldn't put a Zamzo's facility back here. We arguably couldn't put the type of distribution facility that we're all contemplating under that definition. And we don't want to have those fights with you or the neighbors or others. And then just the second thing, Mr. Wagner's comment about height, I would point out, you know, I think we can very much live with a 50-foot height limitation. If this application were coming forward as the entire thing being C3, there would be no height limitation. And as we talk about height limitation, what I would suggest is that we limit that height limitation to those buildings located on the western boundary and the northwest boundary, because we very well could have a user for industrial use that needed something taller. And to the east, those uses are more intensive. So we're fine with that, because the existing residences there to the west could build to 35 feet under your code. So 50 feet probably is not problematic, and the likelihood of going taller than 50 feet for this type of industrial use is not high. But again, we just want to make sure that we're dealing with these very limited issues. So with that, I'll stand for any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wardle. Questions from council? Thank you, sir. Okay, that concludes those who have signed up in support or favor. There is no one with questions or discussion. So we'll go with those who have signed up in opposition. Candace Louise, please come forward.
Hopefully you can hear me now.
We have to have it on the record. We need to have it pulled down so we can get it on the record.
Do you have any sanitation? Yeah. Thank you so much. Honorable Mayor and, respected city council members, this is all new to me. My name is Candace Louise, and I'm a homeowner in Boyd's Crossing subdivision on the east side of Concourse Avenue, which borders the west boundary of the parcel we're talking about, the CDA North Branch development. I'm here to ask the council to.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you been sworn in?
Sorry?
Have you been sworn in? Okay, we have to get that on the record, so again, as you come forward, please just acknowledge you've been sworn in. I didn't mean to scare you, I'm so sorry. I just have to get that on the record, thank you.
I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I've been planning for this. I'm here to ask the city council in either request to rezone or annex approximately 94 acres of this parcel from commercial C3 to manufacturing and production M1. I request this entire parcel from commercial C3 to manufacturing production remain C3. I request that the entire 116 acre parcel be zoned C3, or at least include buildings A and E under C3 zoning that consist with the 21 acres. And from what I just heard, the biggest building, which is Building A, and 273,000 square feet, and from what I heard tonight, it sounded like that building and Building E are the ones that they want to have more industry, which is, we live right there on those houses, just on the other side of the plastic fence. On the other side of our fence, the property is about 2 feet lower. So I don't know where I know the berm will go out 30 feet. And then I got really confused when they talked about the distance between our fence line. There's a 30-foot berm. Then there's some pavement and parking, and then a facade. So I thought they said 120 feet, which was one of my questions, and that's really close. That's a big building that takes up 2/3 of our entire east side of our subdivision. And then Building E has 84,000 square feet. Okay. On the land use schedule, there are 11 categories, from agricultural to public and semi-public. This allows a large variety of 109 M1 permitted businesses, such as a lumberyard, which they said that maybe they wouldn't put in, but it is on the schedule. There are another 46 business types that are marked with an F, or special use. My first concern is amending the zoning to M1 to negatively impact the value of my property and all the properties on Boyd's Crossing, especially the ones that share the border directly with this parcel of land. My second concern is that the M1 permitted and possibly special use businesses could be noisy, smelly neighbors that work all night with the lights on, And the far northwest corner could become a catch-all for trash, given that the wind pattern is gonna totally change once the building blocks the flow of air. That's all open field that we've been looking at for 3.5 years. The berm of 5 feet is a foot lower than our fences. So I don't really know how that berm is going to help increase our privacy or noise from the buildings A and E. I understand that progress is inevitable, and I accepted the fact that the 115 acres of agricultural land are going to be turned into businesses. I'm just having difficulty accepting the possibilities of so many unknowns that could significantly decrease my quality of life and that of my neighbors. These are my questions. Why is there a zone to amend the zoning from C3 to M1? Why is there that request? And why can't all 15 acres maintain a C3 zone, or, like I said, extend the C3 zone along the western border? Number 2, if this request is granted, can there be stipulations put in place that would allow only C3 businesses to occupy buildings A and E? These buildings are the ones that share the borders with the neighbors to the west and to the north of this parcel. Number 3, are certain buildings already earmarked for specific types of businesses? And are there any businesses that have already committed to rent or lease a specific area of a building? There are 4 businesses. Given that there are also 4 businesses designated as S, special use, under the M1 zoning, what is the process that could change that S designation to a permitted P designation? None of these 4 businesses sound particularly neighborhood friendly. These 4 businesses designated X under the M1 category of land use schedule currently include asphalt plants, cement, concrete, clay manufacturing, chemical storage, and meat processing. Number 5, are the buildings on the proposed concept site plan subject to change? I did hear some conversation about some ambiguity about whether or not how it's going to be divided up. That's a lot of square footage. I don't want to deviate, especially regarding the proximity to the residential neighborhoods to the west and the north. Could that be changed? Is that going to be just one big building? Could that building be broken up? Could that building be set back further than just the 30 feet parking lot, parking spaces, and the front of a building? From what I gathered, I still think that's only, they said 120 feet. Number 6, what is the proposed distance between the shared border of Lloyd Crossing and the farm building A and E? And that's kind of an answer. How many proposed and or separate businesses will occupy or share the storefront west sides of the building, A and E, which you kind of showed with those pictures of another industrial development. Because they're all, it's, like I said, that is one huge building. What are the outer perimeter measurements of buildings A and E? Especially considering the one building has over 172,000 square feet, building E has 84,000 square feet. Almost done. Number 9, what time frames are proposed regarding each phase of this development, especially regarding noise, dirt, trash generated by the project? And will there be work going on at night? I have seen light at night on the other side of my fence, but they did that with farming. that wasn't too disruptive. I'm just wondering, as it's getting closer, are they gonna have these huge spotlights? And they gonna be allowed to work like past 8 o'clock? My last question, will there be a security system including video cameras monitoring the outside activity in all the areas between the building exteriors and the property lines, especially with regard to the west and north sides, and that northwest corner, which will likely and hopefully be quiet at night, but will also become accessible to vehicles and outdoor activities that are not safe or conducive to property owners just on the other side of the proposed parking lot with only a 30-foot berm. So right back there in that corner, it's gonna be, I think, kind of sketchy. It's not near Sneed, it's not near Highway 2026, and there will be access to any kind of vehicles that want to go around there. With all the talk about the uses of M1 in the schedule that I keep referring to, the land use schedule, there are 109 available, with P, they're designated P, and 46 F, possible uses. There are 14 right now that are M1 uses that are not C3 uses. Those include grain crop storage, automated tow yards, body shop, truck and tractor repair and services, truck stop, crematorium, aircraft repair and service, factory assembly plant, monument production, recycling operation, contractor shop storage yard, public utility yard, trucking terminal yard, and a BMX dirt bike track. Those are currently under the land use, permit. So I request that the council maintain a C2 zoning of the entire 115 acres. If the council approves the zoning change to M1, could the developers be limited to what kinds of uses will be allowed and adjacent to the residential development on the shared borders? This development has already negated the open mountain views to the east that my neighbors and I have enjoyed for the past 3.5 years. With the major residential growth in the Treasure Valley, I'm disappointed this 115-acre parcel of land is being developed as light industrial area, bordering much residential zoning. I hope this zoning provides at least as much tax revenue as could have been generated by residential zoning. But my last that I want to have lived here is, right now, that whole parcel is red, it is commercial. In the map that Mr. Knapp sent me, the industrial section is not, it chops it up. He said something about leapfrogging. And what this will do is it's gonna make that front section commercial and all the back of it industrial, and it sounds like the most industrial is going to go to the northwest side. So that is my concern. I appreciate the, taxes that will be generated. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. Thanks for listening, and I think I'm done.
Thank you. You did great.
Okay.
I can answer a couple of your
Okay.
questions. I don't pretend to answer for the developers, but you asked a couple of questions
Okay.
about process. I believe it was in Mr. Mapp's testimony
Yes.
that,
I apologize for not being able to.
well, you know, he's hard to hear sometimes, so I asked him to speak up, and he is hard to hear. But just again, for general purposes, what he testified to and what the applicant testified to is that all special use permises will be stricken from any uses so in other words, all those things that you were concerned about, all the S's are gone. They can't be used.
Okay, they can't be,
They can't be used, and they both agreed to that.
okay.
And then the process for a special use permit, I mean, it's not gonna happen, but you ask process, if it, under any special use permit, the applicant has to come in, there's notification to all the affected property owners, it goes before the planning and zoning commission or hearing examiner to approve or deny that special use permit, so there's a hearing just like this that would have to be held for any special use permit to be issued. But in this case, they're
Negated,
negated.
okay.
And then in addition to that, there's another 100 and some uses. That list has been greatly reduced down to just, more appropriate uses that are light and so forth. I'm putting words in there now, and I shouldn't do that. I'll let them address that during the rebuttal.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can address. And again, it probably was hard to hear. Mr. Matt does his best, but he has an issue with his throat that he just can't speak real loud, and so I apologize for that. But that's the only question I can answer for you. The rest of it, I'll let them address during their rebuttal.
Okay. One of the things in my study that I did notice that was interesting, I went back, and the permitted uses under M1 versus the permitted uses under C3, I was surprised that there are some similar, like the shooting range is allowed under C3. So,
There are some crossovers.
yeah, I shot myself in the foot with that.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
For the record, your letter will be labeled CC 1001. It was presented to the council. Okay, we'll label that for the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Any questions for Ms. Louise? Sure. I guess we're good, all right? It's been requested that we take a short break, and so we will take a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back at this exact same point. So the next person to testify will be Londa Mansfield? I'm sorry, I knew I would mess that up, I apologize.
Everybody does.
So Londa, you are next when we come back, so I'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. Right. Oh, thank you so much. You're welcome. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
I did bring a, in the gate, and it's not gonna keep us. Right, yeah. Turning it to be. You can do it morning. You can send it morning.
Yeah, 4 hours here, work and stuff.
And I'll be on it.
It's just a joy because I'm here, right?
I just wanted to introduce myself. Hi, thank you so much, Kiki. Thank you so much for, communicating with me, and this was really hard. Yeah, I read the whole thing. I read the whole thing. Yeah. Hi. That was really hard. Yeah, I actually wrote up a letter here too, this morning. Okay, thank you. Well, considering the people who were home, I got this amount of signatures. This one, but there was a lot of people, I didn't have much time to like. Well, everybody is very concerned about it. Okay, oh, okay. And that was all? No, you have nothing. Absolutely nothing. Totally. Now, the one that you're back up with. That was a little out here. Zoning can do that, and I filled it out twice.
Oh, good.
I
have the work that I made in December, right?
I was gonna bring it up, but I think they were just. Is that the one? That was. And if they were already marked off? Wait, that time. No, their time. Okay, yeah, that was But if it's in the staff report, it should have got it. I got the whole staff report. Okay, thank you. I appreciate all the effort you did to go through each one of those. Thank Me too. Yep, there's two.
I thought they were gonna go straight on.
HOA told me. Yeah, like you're not supposed to. They don't want you there, they want me in.
There you go.
Yeah, they didn't go over that this time. I swear, I read that today, but he did go through each one of the things I listed, and several of them got down. Really is, like the crematorium. But yeah, didn't he say that the building's supposed to be under 50 feet?
Alrighty, we will call the meeting back to order and resume the public hearing at the place we left off. So again, Wanda, you're next.
My name is Wanda Nampoipo. I live at 419 Concord Avenue in Boyd's Crossing, and I have this one in.
Welcome.
Thank you. I only have one or two things to, in addition to Candace's presentation. It was really nice, there were some people at the city that gave us information about this project so that we would be a little bit better versed in what we were looking at. But one of the things that we did not see in any of those documents, and there was a lot of them, was, the height. We had no idea that the height could possibly be 55 feet. We were thinking these were all single level, buildings. So that's definitely a concern. Back of my property would mean I would have some nice trees in the back of the building to look at. And maybe some light issues that have been presented, that would be wonderful. But I don't know with the second story if that would be possible, if there was light, coming from the building. My other concern that wasn't addressed is that on our street, there is a place that's not considered buildable. The idea was at some point in time, if they were gonna build other houses behind us, that road would go through. We've made several phone calls, nobody has been able to give us an answer if that road would be considered, a way to open it up so the traffic go through our housing development, from the complex. So that's a concern, yes, that area. So we don't know about that. We know it's not big enough to build a house on, so we know it's big enough for a street. So that would be one of my other stories. So those are the things I wanted to add there.
Thank you. Brent, do you have any answer for her question regarding that spot there? Mr. Mayor?
I actually drafted that condition.
Okay, so I'll let Mr. White.
If you want. So I used to be the planner, and I actually wrote that condition for that development. So if I remember correctly, the condition basically states that if it was gonna be residential, that street was to go through, but if it was anything other than residential, it was designed that it could actually turn into a residential lot. So it should be pretty much similar. If you look 2 up from there, at 211, those are more or less the same size. So it was conditioned, yeah, 0.15, so the exact same size, that it could be turned into a residential lot and would not go through if it was a commercial industrial use.
For the person I talked to didn't know that, which is awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Mantoiffel?
Yeah, good. Really good.
I said that.
Yeah, you did really well.
All right, any questions at all for Wanda? Okay, thank you. Robert Mantoiffel?
They covered pretty much everything that I would have asked.
Okay, Robert Mantoiffel is here, and let the record show that he agrees with the testimony so far in opposition.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Okay, we go again. Beverly Jaskowski? Did I murder that too? I'm
No,
sorry.
you did actually pretty good. My name's Beverly Jaskowski, and my address is 207 Concord Avenue, so I am on the back side of this big building going in. Very not happy about this whole situation at all. I don't even understand why they would consider building M1 manufacturing right next to, and that close to a residential neighborhood. First of all, I think noise ordinance is gonna be a major concern, besides the fact of a 50-foot building. And that parcel that she was just asking about, I called HOA and Hayden Homes, and they said it was unbuildable. And it was a possibility that that could turn into a road. Now, we pay HOA fees. We don't pay a small amount of HOA fees. We pay a substantial amount. We have no amenities in this subdivision, and they won't stand up for us, which is sad in my opinion, as far as trying to back us up in this situation. I understand progress. I understand growth, but when it comes to being 30 feet from my back fence, I have a problem with it. I went around today and I conducted a letter, which I will read to you, and it's an exhibit which I gave her, earlier. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read this. I conducted this letter today very quickly. I didn't have a whole lot of time to get signatures, but I managed to get 26 signatures onto this letter of, the few people that were home today, this morning, this afternoon. There were were able to sign, and not happy about our houses being this close to a decision, a development rather. My house is gonna be right behind that 50-foot tall building that's about, I don't know, 275,000 square feet, whatever you said it was. And it's very open-ended as far as they can change a lot on this, that we won't know about yet. So, you know, that's very concerning to me, plus property values going down possibly from all this noise. I mean, who wants to buy a house where you have a 50-foot building behind you, and noise, and tractor trailers coming in and out at 18+ hours is what I understand they said last time of operation. Now, in my letter, we're asking that that be reduced. Instead of 18 hours, possibly even 12 hours, because that's a lot of noise at all hours of the night. With tractor trailers coming through it here, and they did mention a trailer, I forgot what the term he used, but when I kind of looked it up, it was supposedly hangars and box cars just sitting there and storing, so which means the trucks are gonna probably be running at all hours of the night. So just to briefly read, what I got here. Oh, and by the way, also, I called Caldwell, Planning, and left 2 messages with Debbie Root to the early part of September and got no responses back from her at all as to a couple things I wanted to address that have not been addressed yet. I said, I'm writing this letter on behalf of the residents of Boyd's Crossing subdivision. We are an HOA guided community with homes built from hidden homes. We understand that a business park will be built behind our homes. We are concerned with noise, traffic, with operations 18+ hours. We also would like to keep this subdivision quiet and without through traffic from the industrial park. There are 3 possible roads. 2 of them actually have a road and sidewalks, which are Tarragon and Paprika Street. And the one in question from Ms. Louise was Territory Street, that is, quote, an unbuildable lot, which we still don't know what that means. Which are asking not to be open to through traffic. Because this would not only have noise traffic 30 feet from our fence, which they were supposed to build a fence, and now that's gonna be gone too. But it's gonna also have through traffic coming through if they decide, and planning decides to open up these roads. I mean, it's bad enough we're getting this behind our house, behind all our homes, okay? The worst thing I could ever say, because it hasn't been addressed yet, is these 3 roads that can possibly be open to through traffic, all hours of the night, employees coming in and out. You know, they already have roads coming in from 2026, and, Mueller, I believe, is another road that they have coming through, which sits on the side of our subdivision. So, the people there are gonna have tractor trailers probably coming in at all hours, you know, who's to say that they're gonna respect the fact of not going on the main roads of 2026. But I am in question, and I want to see if anybody can give me an answer about this. It's possible to lower their operational to 12 hours, as well as put that fence in that they originally said they were gonna do, and now they're not going to. But even if you put trees in there, it's gonna take, 10 years for a tree to grow really big, and even hide anything? And also, for the 3 roads in question, the unbuildable lot, the HOA told me it was unbuildable, Aiden Holmes told me it was unbuildable, if there was a possibility, that Caldwell could possibly open these roads up into our subdivision. Now, we pay HOA fees. This should be private. This should not, we have kids on our streets, we have family members, we are raising families, this should not be open roads coming in. And there should be some sort of ordinance to noise at 18-hour of operation. I ask that you consider these, because we pay a good amount of money for our homes. And I'm sure they would not like this in the back of their house. That's pretty much all I have to say. She does have a copy of this, with all the signatures, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will label that CC 1002, which is the letter presented from Beverly Deskowski.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
And again, I'll try to answer the one question that I know the answer to, and I can't presume the answer for the applicant. But again, the only street that I was aware of where it even contemplated being opened at any time is that one right there, right there. And again, I'm not sure why they would say it's unbuildable, because it's a roadside lot, there's several of those lots to the north end and south of it. But again, if you look at the proposed plan, there is no roads at all being opened up anywhere along that side. All the road and traffic is being proposed, again, hasn't been approved yet. But if it is approved, it would be all conducted through the east side of the property and not through any of these streets whatsoever on there.
Well, is there something that we could actually get, Debbie never answered any of my questions.
Sure, if it is approved, it would certainly show you the preliminary plan, how it's approved, where the roads that are approved and so forth, and that can be provided to you, certainly.
Yeah.
Again, it hasn't been approved or denied or changed or whatever else, this is just the public hearing portion of it. But if it is approved, then we would certainly provide it to you, that shows you where the traffic patterns will be.
So there's a possibility that it can.
No, if this is approved, no. No. Again, that's the preliminary plat, which is part of this. If the preliminary plat is approved in the manner it is, the roads show specifically where they are, and there's nothing else that could be approved besides that. That's part of the preliminary plat process. Okay? Okay, you bet. Any questions for Ms. Jaskowski? I'm so sorry, I'm trying to do the best I can.
No, you actually did pretty good.
All right, thank you. All right, and again, I'm gonna mess the next one up. Trina Creek?
Great, and I actually have nothing else to add.
Okay, I got one right tonight, yay for me. All right, so Trina Creek is here, and let the record show that you're in agreement with the testimony in opposition. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Kim McClellan?
You did master that one.
I'm sorry.
McCallum.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm 1 for 5 tonight. That's not a very good batting average.
Yeah, my name is Ken McCallum. I live at 221 Concourse, which is right next to that lot on territory everybody's talking about. The lot is big enough to build on, so I don't know why it couldn't be. They just don't know that they can do it yet. Somebody here has to tell them. So anyhow, I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. From my standpoint, I come from out of state, although a lot of people in there are from out of state, so it's a lot of people out there. I've been grandfathered into Idaho, so I can live here. I went to college and ANU, so anyhow. My feeling is that from where I came from, you never, ever have a situation like this being discussed. Never put warehousing, manufacturing, or anything next to residential, next to schools, next to churches. Now, I understand in some places, churches move into areas like that, but it's just never up for discussion. And those places where you do manufacturing is all on its own, out in an area. They got, most of them have some kind of walls, or they got a railroad track separating the town. And that's why I think, I don't know why they're trying to put this right here. I would recommend not even putting it in one, but there's other areas in the town you could put manufacturing. And there's areas over by the airport, out by Simplot, that would be a lot better place for a lot of those businesses. The other thing is, I know that, Jerome said that the school district was contacted, and I did follow up with that, and they were contacted, and they seemed to go along with it, although they said that they were told there wasn't gonna be any traffic on Smead, very little. So I don't know exactly how that plan is there, but they were satisfied with that. But I would say next to the school, in my own opinion, is negative. I wouldn't do it. The school's gonna need some special routes for those kids to get through now on Highway 20. I think a lot of them live on the other side of the highway. And then the only other thing, that I would mention is the fence. The fence is vinyl, but it is more like plastic. Fence guys that put them up told me it's the cheapest fence they could find. And I can go out there and, if I wanted to, punch a hole in it, just push it through. So, it's really not, in my opinion, a very satisfactory fence, and they won't let us put our own up, so we're stuck with that. And that's why when they did mention fence, I was satisfied that they did fence. But, that's one issue there that needs to be addressed, I think. I don't, if you're gonna go through with this, take care of that. And, other than that, we do have a view, like the one person said, there's a lot of wildlife out there. My recommendation would be to make it a park and a wildlife refuge. Do something a little better with it, but that'd make all of us happy. Or a golf course. Anyhow, that's all I've got to say on that. Just leave it up to you guys. Appreciate talking to us.
Thank you, Ken. And I just want to clarify one thing. I am confused.
Yes.
Because I can tell you that the school district has been involved in this from day one. From the very beginning, they knew exactly what was being proposed here. As a matter of fact, they even authorized, some of, the design of road and everything else. So I'm a little confused. I don't know who you talked to.
Well, I did talk to the superintendent. I got his name.
But Pat Charlton. It's Pat Charlton, and he was in every one of these meetings.
Okay, he told me the city was real good with him, and he was satisfied, but his biggest issue was the traffic by the school, and it looks like he addressed that, but from that one road there on out to Highway 20, it's still, will be high intensity traffic, in my opinion. He wasn't, I didn't talk to him about any specifics. But that's just what he told me, is you guys took care of the traffic issues for them, which is, I'm sure of that part there. And the rest of it is gonna be high traffic. And like I said before, the kids from that school are gonna have to get out to Highway 20. Right across, there's a housing development somewhere right over there. I'm sure a lot of those kids hiking over there. So I don't know what we got planned for that, but Highway 20 is pretty nice.
It is.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Any questions for McCallum, Mr. McCallum? Thank you, sir.
Good deal.
All right, that concludes everyone who signed up to speak this evening. So we will go back to, rebuttal testimonies. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, esteemed council members, I'll be very brief. Appreciate the feedback and input that was given. Let me just address what I think are some collective points, one by one here. First, it was referenced, a request for, maybe a question was posed actually, as to why can't we make the 115 acres C3? There are several reasons. Three actually, is that the comprehensive plan contemplates and requests that that area be designated as M1, 2, and I think that's probably embedded somewhere in the rationale that the comprehensive plan functionality, the commercial along the road, as was requested, as was indicated, that the commercial along the frontage of Chinden is functionally better than you can imagine retail or a C-store or if it's tucked back in the back corner. And third, to the point, why would we not do that? It actually is mitigating the noise and disruption by not having a commercial back there and keeping it along the Chinden corridor as contemplated in the 2040 comprehensive plan. In terms of the comment made, are there specific, and I apologize, perhaps I could have been more clear in my initial presentation, but there are not specific uses or tenants earmarked for any of these specific buildings. What I had intended to state and what I thought I did is that this is a conceptual plan. In the end, when this site is fully developed, will it look like the site that has been shown here as an exhibit up on the screen? And I don't know if I have that. Yeah, will it look exactly like that? It will not. But what will be certain are several mitigating factors and components that BVA development is implementing at its own election choice to ensure that additional mitigation is ensured. The 30-foot landscape buffer is not required by code. It's 20-foot setback that's required. A 5-foot berm is not required by code. The dense trees and shrubbery on top of the berm is not required by code. And I would submit to you that the fencing that we're talking about originally, it was understood by the city as we were going through there that there wasn't a fence behind the west portion of the residential. There is actually that final backyard fence. And so the requirement that 5 feet from that we put another final fence would be redundant and would create dead space. Instead, we did something better. We created a 5-foot berm, and on top of that, we'll have tall trees and dense shrubbery, which would be enhanced compared to a duplicate 5-foot vinyl fence that would only, it would serve no purpose. So it was an enhancement, not a detraction from the original plan. In the end, and I want to be clear that the code requirement is a 20-foot setback. I don't want to get to the position where we're setting our own floor, so to speak. It's not 30, it's not 120, it's not 150. The code requirement is 20 feet. And what we've discussed here tonight is at the proposal of BVA to mitigate further by our own election to ensure that neighbors are not disturbed by light or sound. I wanted to just really briefly touch on, I very much appreciate the comments regarding how can we have N1 light industrial next to residential. It's very important to note that the Caldwell Code contemplates N1 zone next to single-family residential. That is contemplated. This exact scenario, in fact, is set forth in Code Section 10-7-10, subsection 4. For that reason, that code section contemplated that N1 would be next to residential, set forth the landscape buffering requirement that then we have enhanced even further. And so finally, I touched on a number of things. I think where I'd like to conclude, and it is my attempt to sort of collectively address the comments that have been made, is the comprehensive plan that was put forth to the public. It was subject to public comment and scrutiny, was ultimately adopted, and we then as the developer are working within the framework that has been set for us to work in. And with that, that comp plan specifically, expressly, asks for C3 along Chinden on the corridor, approximately 21 miles, as shown in the site plan, which we have done, and M1 along Smead and Aviation Drive, which we have done. And for the record, that specific request and contemplation in the comprehensive plan is found on Exhibit 17 and page 49 of the 2040 comprehensive plan. So the framework has been set for us to work within, and we're doing our best to work within that framework specifically, and then in addition to that, provide extra mitigation components for the residents. And I stand for question.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Peterson?
Oh, I'm sorry. My portion was done. I did want to, for a legal component, turn my time off if allowed. Sure, my colleague does that. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, during the break, we took a moment, again, Jeffrey Wardle, who's at 20, we did take a moment to go through the land use schedule. And just to be absolutely clear, we do believe that there are appropriate conditional uses that we could and should be able to come back here. We should not be an absolute bar on special use. And the examples I would pose is special use that's permitted with the M1 is for an academic or training facility. So if Valley Community College or CWI or Idaho Lineman College wanted to do a facility here, we would have the ability to do it. We don't want to have to come back and amend the development agreement. Want to come back and get a special use permit. Additionally, as we discussed and compared the comments that were in the staff report with what is the land use schedule in 10-2-2, there are some concepts, we absolutely agree. Concrete batch plant makes no sense whatsoever. Asphalt batch plant makes no sense whatsoever. Junkyard makes no sense, we're not gonna do that. But we just need to work through what those uses are. What we would suggest is a condition that we come back with a development agreement, after consulting with your council and with staff, taking the concepts that Mr. Matt has outlined and the concepts that our neighboring property owner outlined, because I think in general, we're amenable to all of those, but if we're gonna have a light industrial use, you know, you have to have truck distribution, that's inherent in warehousing. So that's the first thing. So as we talk about it, we absolutely, Mr. Mayor, to be clear, are not acquiescing to a prohibition on special uses. We do think quite a few special uses and some of the permitted uses can go away. Second, I would also point out that throughout this process, we have taken our example and model from what the city has done on the south side at this location. When we look at Sky Ranch, when we look at the zoning that's been approved in Sky Ranch, when we look at the residential uses that are immediately to the east of Sky Ranch and are either adjacent or within 100 feet of Sky Ranch M1 zoning, separated only by intensive multifamily, we think that this is exactly what the city has identified as necessary. We think this is how you implement the comprehensive plan, and that's the direction that we've taken. The final thing, just to clarify and point out, is we recognize the concern there on the northwest side. That is why the front of those buildings faces those residents. We see those parking lots, that's employee parking, that's not truck parking, that's not loading docks, that's not distribution facilities. That is the front of that building. And so with the 150-foot plus setback that you get from having the 30 feet to the 224-foot drive aisles to the other thing, that's the view that we have committed. And yes, it's a concept plan, but I'm amenable to a condition committing that in the northwest corner, that the front of the building, the front elevation faces to the west. We're willing to do that because that's the view. And again, if this were M1 or if this were C3, we have an unlimited amount of height. So we think that if you want to also impose a condition, we're amenable that for the buildings or for the areas occupied by model buildings A and E, a 50-foot height requirement for those is appropriate. So, Mr. Mayor, we are appreciative of your time. We appreciate the work that's been done on this. We're amenable to incorporating these into a development agreement, and we would stand for any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wardle. Go for it. Mark, this is a question for maybe you and Mr. Wardle, the two attorney minds. There has been testimony that special use permits would not be allowed by Jerome, and he presented a list to council striking those. And also, I think there are some minor changes to the development agreement for definitions. So, my question for you is, and again, I don't know if council's even going to approve this or not, but before they even get to that point, does that need to be worked out? In other words, does that need to be brought back and presented in a public hearing so that everybody has a chance to hear it in council at the same time? Just due to transparency in the public hearing process. So I guess what I'm saying is if that is the case and those things are yet to be worked out, should that be presented in a public hearing before council makes a decision on whether
I think so, Mayor, and I'll look at Jeff too. He's done, as you know, a lot of this work. But the development agreement is something that does need to be the subject of a public hearing. And so, I think we do need to get that document prepared, and then there probably should be some comment on it. So it might be, from a procedural standpoint, wise to continue this hearing. And then testimony could remain open for the limited purpose of commenting on draft development. I haven't had a chance to run that by the applicant, but it seems like a reasonable way to get that development agreement.
And again, I'm just trying to stay in the spirit of transparency of the public hearing, so everybody gets heard at the same time. and staff gets to hear it at the same time, public gets to hear it, so that any questions can, again, based upon that doc. The board has testimony on the rest of it, but that is something that is different than what was presented in the, so, you know, I guess my question is, would it be appropriate to continue this to the next city council meeting and bring that back as a completed document, and let the council make a decision at that point?
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I mean, I don't disagree with that. Obviously, development agreement is a prerequisite to actually adopting the zoning ordinance. So you're gonna have to have a hearing on that regardless. We're ready, willing, and able to proceed. And I don't wanna throw your staff under the bus, but the reality is this issue of these uses was only brought to our attention Thursday afternoon when the staff report was issued. It was something we talked about with staff, and we talked about with the hearing examiner, what was appropriate. And we specifically at that time said we did not think it was appropriate to eliminate special uses because the special use permit gives neighboring property owners all the protections that they're seeking today. So I understand the process, I understand the concern. I guess we've attempted to do everything to work through this in the timeline that was presented to us. And we would just encourage in the future that when we recognize and we're amenable to talking about uses, that it not be left until the 11th hour outside of our control. Because we would have been ready, willing, and able to come forward with a development agreement and address a lot of the concerns, including, you know, the list that was in the correspondence from our neighboring property owner. We looked at that, and we were amenable to incorporating all of those. But we have to have, and the public deserves more notice too, than having a fundamental pivot in the nature of the application. So, I understand the concern. Process is very important. We want to be transparent. How soon would you want us to be back, and how soon could we be back?
It'd be October 4th, the next available meeting.
And how soon would we need to have a development agreement outlined with those revisions?
By Thursday prior, which would be we publish our agendas the Thursday meeting prior to that.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, thank you for looking that up.
By September 30th.
Okay.
That's only 9 days away.
Well, Mr. Hilton and I have been able to do some pretty incredible things in a pretty short period of time. So I have no doubt about our ability to get this done. And we will turn it around by the 30th, and we think that's appropriate. Sean, you can't turn. Okay.
Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, and I hate to ask Mr. Hilton, the attorney, a question, because I'm always afraid of their answers. But do we have to notice for the development agreement in the public notice that goes out?
It's already part of the development agreement. Already part of it.
If I didn't see it in the, does it specifically have to be noted in the?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I mean, it was, certainly throughout the staff report, there was discussion about the development agreement and requirement for development agreement. So we'll double back on the notice requirement.
Okay. All right, so at that point then,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, Mr. Carlson.
I will, get to making that motion, but I just want to make a couple comments first. First of all, the applicant is the owner of the property, and I want him to have the property right be served. The second thing is, I don't believe that we need to start changing the code that we've already instigated, such as, the height of the building, unless it's in the AP zone. If, say they get a school out there that wants to go higher than what the 50 feet allows, or the 50 feet that was said, I think we need to give them that opportunity. This is their development. I think this is an opportunity. I don't want to see that put in a development once it's, something that they're making.
And again, I think the direction is to let these two work out something and bring back for your review, but thank you for that information. Or if you can certainly take that into
Mr.
consideration.
Mayor, I would make a motion that we continue this hearing for, October 4th, and these changes that, regular city council meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to continue this public hearing, place it is, which is filled with the public testimony portion during open, specifically to address just simply the development agreement, right? Okay, so that's a motion from Mr. Carlson, is there a second? Second by Mr. Pollard, any further discussion on that? Oh, it is, I'm sorry, it is the fifth? I apologize, Monday's the fifth. Okay, fourth is a Sunday, we don't wanna do that.
Okay.
So October fifth would be your motion, Mr. Carlson, okay with the seconder? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? I'm sorry, Rob, I forgot. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. This public hearing will continue to a time date certain, which would be 7 P.M. in these chambers, October 5th. Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a word about, quasi-judicial process, for those that aren't familiar with it. It would be inappropriate for anybody, applicant side, anybody opposed, to contact city council or provide any information to you about this. All that needs to come out of the public hearing. So, for those that were in opposition, we'll have a development agreement for you the Wednesday prior to that hearing. You can take a look at exactly what's there, and then you can provide an opportunity to comment on it at the hearing. But please don't, contact staff if you have questions, but don't try to contact the council members or the mayor. The applicant won't be doing that either. Okay.
Can we also address a 12-hour operation as opposed to 18+ hours?
The public hearing is closed, and I'm sorry, we've gone through the process.
Well, I mentioned it before.
Yeah, I think he got your letter, and he mentioned that he would take a look at it. So, it's just process, I have to respect that process.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, that then moves us to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 5. I'm sorry, that also, item number 5. Consider bill number 52, ordinance number 3299, to annex 4904 Charmaine Street, instrument number 201900467, into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District. Again, this is routine in nature, this is voluntary, this is something we do all the time. It's brought forward at the request of the property owner, and so this is brought forward this evening with the request to waive the rules and pass it on its first reading by title only. So, this is known as bill number 52, ordinance number 3299. An ordinance of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges, and providing an effective date.
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Aldridge.
I move we waive the 3 reading rule and consider bill number 52, ordinance number 3299 on its first reading.
Thank you. For a second. I have a motion by Mr. Aldridge, a second by Mr. McGee to waive the 3 reading process, consider bill number 52, ordinance number 3299, on its first reading by title only. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Aldridge?
Yes.
Wagner? Hopper? Paulson?
Yes.
Pollard?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The rules have been suspended. Mr. Aldridge?
I will sponsor bill number 52, ordinance 3299, and move for its passage.
Thank you. Is there a second? I have a motion by Mr. Aldridge, second by Mr. McGee, to sponsor bill number 52, ordinance number 3299, move for its passage on its first reading by title only. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Aldridge?
Yes.
Wagner?
Yes.
Hopper? Paulson? Pollard?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. Thanks very much. Ordinance 52, bill number 52, ordinance number 3299 has been passed unanimously by the Caldwell City Council on its first reading by title only. Item number 6 is exactly the same. It is a request by property owner to be annexed into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District. This is known as bill number 51, ordinance number 3298, with the request to waive the rules and pass it on its first reading by title only. Bill number 51, ordinance number 3298, an ordinance of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges and providing an effective date.
Mayor.
Mr. Allgood.
And legally waive
three reading rule and consider bill number 51 and ordinance number 3298 on its first reading.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Hawkins, is there a second? Second by Mr. McGee to waive the three reading rule and pass bill number 52, ordinance number 3298 on its first reading by title only. Would clerk call the roll, please?
Alden,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Pollard,
Yes.
McGee.
Yes. Thank you. The rules have been suspended.
Mayor,
Mr. Hawkins?
I move that we, consider pass bill number 51, ordinance number 3298, and approve it.
We'll do that. Is there a second? That motion by Mr. Hawkins.
Long time.
Mr. McGee, response to bill number 51, ordinance number 3298, move for its passage on its first reading by title only. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
I heard it. Will the clerk call the roll?
Alden,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Pollard,
Yes.
McGee.
Yes. Thank you. Bill number 51, ordinance number 3298 has been passed on its first reading by title only, unanimously. Financial report.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Pollard.
the Finance Committee has reviewed current accounts payable in the amount of $2,654,536.72 for the period ending September 16, 2020. A net payroll of $388,054.52 for the pay period ending August 29, 2020. I move that accounts payable in the amount of $2,654,536.72, represented by check numbers 148376 through 148780, and payroll for the amount of $388,054.52, represented by check numbers 34931 through 34965, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of city clerk.
Thank you. Is there a second? A motion by Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. McGee for approval of the financial report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Council reports, Mr. Pollard. Mr. Felton.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Mr. Hopper.
I'm good, sir.
Mr. Wagner. Mr. Alden. Sir. Mr. McGee. Okay, just real quickly, a couple of things. Just so you will know, both Canyon County and Napa also declined to participate in the mayor's, or excuse me, the governor's property tax, citing similar concerns as was voiced by our attorney and by city council staff. So that means that there were no entities in Canyon County that participated in that. From what I understand, there are several that sent in letters of intent that have withdrawn and not participated. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but probably somewhere around 15% of the cities and less than half the counties. But even in the original intent, there were around 22, 23% of the cities, and several of those have withdrawn. So just wanted you to be aware of that. The Mayor's Advisory Council Golf Tournament went well. Thanks for those of you who helped and participated. It was just a wonderful event. I think we did very well for the Mayor's Advisory Council. The retirement for Roger Garner, our golf pro down at Fairview, is actually tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I apologize. It was one of those things where he's a contract employee in the Women's Golf Association is the one that's going to, they're the ones that decided to throw this event, and so Susan and I discussed that, and so it's tomorrow. So we'll be providing him a gift certificate and a plaque from the city, but the Women's Golf Association will also be presenting him some items. And where will that be? I can have to call Susan. I apologize. This was kind of a last minute thing, and I don't know. 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. If any of you want, my wife's birthday is Friday. She loves yard selling, so money works.
I just bring her a bunch of junk.
There you go, just bring her a bunch of junk. She probably loves it. She probably finds, your junk is probably her treasure. So, no, my sweet wife turned 65 years old. I can't believe it. She looks 35, maybe. That's what she looks more like, but she'll be 65 on the 25th. Andy Cater is retiring. You should have seen an announcement was sent out, invite, by email. But I just want to remind you again, that his retirement is 3 o'clock on the 30th, Wednesday the 30th, and that is at station number 1. They are asking you to wear masks there, and if you do show up, to wear a mask. And so it's an open house from 3 to 5, but usually the formal part of it is at 3 o'clock, the first 15, 20 minutes, and the rest of it's just cake and, it's hard to eat cake with a mask on. Cake and punch and, yeah.
Well, it is almost October, we can go to Halloween, man.
We go to Halloween night, yeah. And I can see Brent is already wearing his. His mask is version.
Yeah, you're referring to Dr. Orton.
Dr. Orton, Doogie Howser. Let's see. Okay, then, also, one of the things that we do need to contemplate, the mayoral election is coming up next year. There has not been an issue so far where there has been less than 50% of the vote by any candidate. But it has been brought up as a concern by some council members. And so we asked Mark to take a look at that. Mark, would you give us, what your current reading is and what would be required? In other words, does it require 50% for a runoff? The mayor's position has always been treated a little differently than council members. Not has been treated, but is technically
Right.
in the past.
Yeah, currently, what the statute provides, the state law, is that the city council may by ordinance provide that a majority of votes is required to be elected mayor. And that if there was no candidate that received at least 50% plus one, or a majority, that there would need to be a runoff. That has not been adopted, by the city, as it was with the city council seats we learned about last fall. So, really, it's simple as this: if you would like to see that requirement in place, okay, that the prevailing candidate for mayor has to receive 50% plus one of the votes, that we need to pass an ordinance to implement that. The default right now is that probably whoever gets the most votes is going to take office. So I guess the question, how would you like to see this done to the council? And of course, this would be a legislative action, so we could bring the ordinance forward that would impose that requirement, and it would be voted on like any other ordinance, or I could not.
And again, it's only been brought forward for just your awareness tonight, certainly not an action item, it's not, just wanted you to be aware of what the circumstances were. So if you have thoughts about that, you can let myself and Mark know. If you want to see it to stay the same, where just whoever gets the most vote wins, if not, then we would have to make a change to get it to 50% plus.
And Mr. Mayor, I mean, is it crystal clear that it's a plurality right now? I mean, there's no muddiness there. Do we need to maybe even clear that up if we want to keep it that way?
I think it makes, we can be clear in either way. What I think makes sense is to have the direction of the council. So it's simple, most votes, plurality, or majority, 50% plus one. You know, recognizing that majority of 50% plus one is going to certainly increase the potential for one.
So again, just so you will know, for full disclosure, several cities around us do have that. Boise does, I believe Meridian does, I think, I know Boise does, plurality, no, where it has to be 50% plus one. Yeah, very good.
The problem with that is that if you get a year that a mayor resigns or retires or in Boise's case, gets put in jail, you get 5 or 6 people running, there's no way you can get it 50%. I mean, I guess you could, but
Not like
it's not likely. And so most votes, I mean, John's second election was really a waste of taxpayers' money, I think.
And again, you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
The couple of concerns that I have been raised is that on a position as important as the mayor, that there should be a mandate. That's one of the questions that I commented on. And so if you have 5 or 6 people running, and you can elect somebody with 31% of the vote, is that a mandate? Now, the other side of that, runoff happens generally not change anything either. So there's always that side of it to look at, but, look, I mean, you guys, again, I haven't announced anything one way or the other, but it's been brought up that if I don't run, how do you want to handle it? That's the question. So, think about it, forward your thoughts, it's your call. If I don't run, I'll be watching from the sidelines. If I do run, nothing changes. Hopefully.
The timeline, I mean, we're way after this, which is good.
Oh, yeah, that's the intent, is to really have fun. Because it looks bad if you try to change something right before election. So, you know, we're a year and 2 months away from election, so that's the time if you're gonna do it, make it a change, so
I
then
don't know,
everybody knows.
don't anybody throw anything at me, but I kind of agree with the sentiment that the mayor is such an important position. The mandate is valuable, you know what I'm saying? The city has said, this is who we want. I didn't like the way it worked though in this previous election, that was the circus.
Well, it's because it wasn't clear. I mean, if it was made clear, then there's no question going it.
Right.
Done the wrong reason too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, again, as far as we're concerned, as a group, this thing.
Ben, it's your call. I mean,
Yeah, we're not making any decisions, I'm just shooting here, but it is an extremely important position to us.
One thing that I would say, you know, just bouncing off what Dennis observed was, you could have a scenario where there were 5 candidates for mayor, one with a very small but very loyal constituency, who wound up with most votes, and then the 4 other candidates kind of divided up the rest. It's not inconceivable that you could have a mayor elected by a plurality of 31%, when maybe the other 70%, if given a choice, would choose somebody else. So it eliminates that possibility where the number of candidates will lose the vote so much that you wind up with somebody that wouldn't be and that might be good.
Very good, but we had several candidates there before the election. I can't remember some that had a majority or not.
I don't know.
And then, can you ask the Napa attorney what they did?
Well, I think that it's a plurality, and that has never come up in my memory, but I would check. I certainly could check and let you guys know.
I'm just always interested, not that we have to follow anybody, but anybody else does, it's always interesting that we.
And I've been fortunate, I have never had less than 50% in any of the elections. Even in the first election, there was only 3, and I still had 60%, and the other 2 had divided up to 40. And so it's been fortunate, but again, it's conceivable if you had, and that's what happens. When you see, for example, if I decide not to run, I can guarantee there'll be
I was
a handful or more people.
I was just gonna say that I looked at my 8 ball the other day, and it said that if Garrett Nancolis doesn't run for mayor, half of the citizens of Caldwell will. And so, yeah, we could be like, yeah.
Is that your 8 ball, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He looked at the mayor and said, what say you?
Yeah.
Very mind. Okay, so.
Mayor, I got one more question.
Yeah.
I drove out by Fire Station 3 the other day. It's looking really close to being done. They were doing, they were putting in curb and gutters and all of that sort of stuff, getting ready to do blacktop and everything. My question is the outside of that building a finished product with the, bricks the way they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're, matter of fact, they were a special order, special design by the architect to, I mean, they're high quality, really high quality.
I doesn't fit my fancy, I think it just doesn't look great, but hey, it's gonna be putting out fires, and that's what matters.
I can honestly tell you I had nothing to do with that, Dennis. I don't know.
Well, I'm trying not to share mine.
I think Mark and Brent decided.
Yeah.
The
designers room, millennial.
I personally like it.
We're not very good at it.
I personally like it.
But
Good.
it's cheap.
I think it's good looking, I like it. Sorry, I do like it, but I didn't,
Okay.
I didn't say, I didn't bring it up. Okay, anything else under comments? If not, then is there motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn, second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We be done.
Okay, hold on, can't leave yet. The only person that has signed up for September thirtieth for the wellness, measurements and blood draw is Chris. And so,
That's my interceptor already.